Chapter 1186. I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to participate in a competition in Dayo in this lifetime. Su Meijun sat in front of the table and sighed softly. It was unknown when Great Xiao's position as the overlord fell in just a few years, but Dayo rose with an unstoppable momentum. This made every martial artist of Great Xia feel very complicated. Great Xia was clearly the center of the world. But that train is really comfortable, and the trucks are not bad either. They are fast and much more comfortable than horse carriages. Also, their roads are really good. Every year, the imperial court's laborers repair, and many people die. I wonder how many people are buried under such roads. A young girl at the side commented. Dayo's train was very comfortable. Dayo's trucks were very comfortable, and Dayo's roads were very good. But Dayo must have lost a lot of people and buried piles of bones. Those corrupt officials didn't care about human lives at all. In short, their contributions will be remembered for generations to come, Su Meijun concluded. Oh, it's really as evil as you say. An old man at the table beside laughed after listening from the beginning to the end. Oh, what did you say? Su Meijun turned around and saw a stout old man in a silk robe. He was served by a manservant beside him. There are professionals in charge of repairing roads. There are definitely people who die. Birth, aging, illness, and death are inevitable. But there aren't many people who die. It would be too exaggerated to see bones everywhere. There's a group of people who specialize in repairing roads. They know how to do it, what materials to use, what speed to do it, and how to do it safely. After all, they specialize in this, and this is called professionalism. Just like how an ordinary person might injure himself with a knife. If it were the two of you, would it be possible? Similarly, the technicians in the construction team aren't incompetent either. The old man laughed and looked at the two of them, as if they were two silly deer. If he wasn't afraid that the other party would draw a knife and chop him, he might have spoken his mind. Indeed, the two of them didn't see the meaning in his eyes. If they did, they would probably draw their knives and chop him. Su Meijun thought about it, and felt that what he said made sense. She became curious. Construction team? They specialize in repairing roads and nothing else? Are they supported by the Ministry of Works? Yes and no. Are they from Great Xia? It might not be the same as the situation in your world. It's a long story to explain in detail. Anyway, they get paid. Although it's a bit tough, it's still better than farming for others. At least they earn more money. The old man said with a smile and gave a simple explanation. Su Meijun nodded and looked down. It was a lively scene. The Yun nation had been conquered by Dayo. Not only were the people living in misery, but it was also a scene of orderly prosperity. Moreover, the commoner's sense of belonging was very strong. The two of them had only said a few words, and someone had already taken the initiative to explain. Senior Marshal Brother, is that the Anata saber? The girl felt bored after listening for a while. She turned her head to look at the street and suddenly exclaimed, he actually came as well. Su Meijun's eyes narrowed. She turned around and saw a handsome young man with a cold expression in the crowd. He was followed by a few women. What caught people's attention the most was the large saber on his back. The saber was 2 meters long, and the saber itself took up half of it. There were 3 slanted ridges on the back of the saber, which could be used to lock weapons. Seeing this weapon, she knew the identity of the young man. He was the most famous young expert in Great Xia in the past 2 years, Jiang Zhong, the Anata saber. Jiang Zhong seemed to have noticed her gaze. He raised his head and glanced at her. His eyes were empty, as if there was nothing in them. There was no person, no light, and nothing could be reflected in his eyes. His gaze swept past Su Meijun's face without stopping at all, as if she was just an insignificant person. He's so arrogant. He doesn't even care about Senior Marshal Brother. Before Su Meijun could speak, the girl was furious. In the next second, the Anata blade Jiang Zhong staggered on the ground. He tripped over something and almost fell to the ground, causing the girl's anger to turn into laughter. Serves him right. Su Meijun smiled and shook her head. It's said that the Anata saber practices his saber technique in his mind all the time, and doesn't care about anything else. His purity is indeed amazing and enviable. It sounds simple, But how many people can be like him? There are a lot of experts participating this time. But senior martial brother will definitely be fine, the girl said. The appearance of this yuan crystal alarmed too many people. Speaking of experts, what kind of experts are we? How many experts were there 10 years ago? Li Fu Li Yuanju, Qi Zi Xiao Jiang Zixi Mahong Yu Su Gongso, and the others are experts. It's just that most of the top 100 experts in the world are missing. Their disciples aren't aware of them, and even Qi Zixiao rarely appears. Now only Li Yuanju stands alone in this world, while Hong Wu and a few other protectors guard the borders. Su Meijun sighed softly in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Not to mention the peak of the spirit will experts. If he could watch them fight, he might be able to find an opportunity to break through. However, after that group of experts disappeared 100 years ago, there was a gap in the world of Great Xia. Nowadays, if an expert wanted to advance further, there wasn't even a reference other than the descriptions in the secret manuals. This was one of the reasons for the decline of the world of Great Xia. Although the outstanding young experts who came this time were here for the Yuan crystal, it wasn't as if they didn't have the intention of inquiring about it. For the next few days, Su Meijun stayed in Wangjing City. From time to time, she would meet familiar young experts to chat or discuss martial arts. During this period, she would also look for opportunities to inquire about those legendary experts, but to no avail. During this period, some other things happened. For example, within half a month, 30 experts died in Wang capital city, and all of them were killed by swords. No one knew who the killer was. All they knew was that the killer's sword was very fast, and the people who died under his sword included left-hand sword East Ning, who was famous for his fast swords, and quick saber Qiu He. The others were not nobodies either. They were all famous young experts. Another example was that there was a young girl in the city who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old, and loved to watch the excitement. Whenever someone was competing, she would hold a melon in one hand and a melon in the other. She would squat at the side as if she was watching a monkey show and would sometimes even give a few pointers. Then, when she was watching a show, she had a conflict with a certain young expert. With a few punches and kicks, she pressed that young expert and his group of friends to the ground and even forced them to call her daddy. The other onlookers were immediately shocked. At this moment, everyone knew that she was also a great expert, and one who was several stories tall. Oh, killer ghost? Ren Baqian chuckled as if he had heard a joke. In reply to your highness, these are all false rumors spread by ignorant people, Jin Kunming, the commander of the rearguard commandery, said with a laugh. After laughing, he changed his tone and said, although it's a false rumor, this person's sword is indeed very fast and strong. If we let him continue to cause trouble, it won't be easy to clean up. Everyone is already panicking now. Have you found out his identity? Ren Baqian asked. Yes, his name is Li Dai. His origin is unknown, and he's about 20 years old. He's a man of few words and seems to rarely talk to others. He's a little strange when talking to people. He doesn't have any inheritance, and seems to have jumped out of the deep mountains and forests. It's suspected that he obtained a secret manual from an ancient tomb. Well, you've done a good job investigating, Ren Baqian praised. It's my duty. His strength. He's at the Earth embryo stage, just one step away from entering the path of heaven. Those who died in his hands were also at the Earth embryo stage, but they weren't as fast as his sword. Ren Baqian thought for a while and said, well, Yuqing is watching the show from Wangjing, right? Let her do it. If she can keep them alive, then let them stay. If she can't, then kill them, Ren Baqian said after some thought. Under her strong request, Erhua and her Taoist nun friend, Li Yuanju, her monk friend, Xing Ruo, and her good friend, Lin Yu, who was offline, formed a band to perform as the opening performance for the martial arts competition. According to her, this was an opportunity for their band to become famous. Therefore, they found an excuse to go to Wangjing City early to watch the show. First, set a small goal, such as 1 second. Chapter 1187. Ah, that man-killer ghost? Kill him? Why? Actually, he's quite fun. Honeysuckle swung her legs as she sat on the window frame. Her mind was filled with the image of the young man who almost bit his tongue after he was knocked into by her on purpose. He was indeed quite fun. Oh, I know. Actually, you don't have to kill him. You just have to beat him into submission, right? Honeysuckle nodded vigorously. I know. Where is he? All right, you guys lead the way. Honeysuckle's body flipped backward and fell down. She spun in the air and landed steadily on the ground. At night in Wangjing, the wind carried the smell of seafood. It mixed with the smell of spices and cosmetics to form a unique smell that made the people of the Yun nation proud. At least, Honeysuckle felt hungry just by smelling it. Sir, a bowl of wonton, please. Honeysuckle threw down 2 coins and suddenly thought of something. She turned to look at the tall and thin man behind her and asked, Do you want some? No. The man shook his head. That's why you couldn't get promoted after working in the rearguard commandery for so many years. Honeysuckle looked disgusted. Her tone implied that he deserved to be promoted, which made the man laugh bitterly. Especially when the 11-year-old princess said that. It was a little hurtful. Another bowl. Another bowl. The pole waited at the side without saying a word, as if he was really a pole. After finishing 3 bowls of wonton, Honeysuckle felt a little better. The rain also fell like a curtain of pearls. Your Highness! Someone hurried over from a distance and handed over a transparent plastic umbrella with a flower pattern printed on it. It was a popular model for the past 2 years. I want oiled paper, Honeysuckle ordered. Handmade is the best. The person was a little stunned. He didn't know where Her Highness got this theory from. How could handmade things be as exquisite as factory-made things? Handmade has soul. Forget it, you guys don't understand anyway. Honeysuckle waved her hand disinterestedly and stood under the shed of the wonton stall. A few minutes later, she took the paper umbrella over her head and walked on the long street. She remembered the time when she went to Great Xia with her father and mother. The family of 3 walked on the street like this. It was also a paper umbrella. This was one of the few scenes that left a deep impression on her. He let his thoughts wander. The mother Empress came back and stayed for a month before heading south again. She had been beaten 15 times this month, an average of once every 2 days. It hurt so much. She's already such a big girl. Yet you still have the heart to beat her? Is he his biological son? Your Highness, that brat has left the inn. It seems like he's going to make a move tonight. Oh, Honeysuckle said casually. Honeysuckle was not in a hurry, and the people who came were not in a hurry either. At most, it would just be 1 or 2 more martial artists dying. The telephone pole was like a moving telephone pole. If he hadn't turned around, he wouldn't have known that someone was following him. Li Dai looked like a shy young man. His appearance was not outstanding, and his clothes were extremely simple, giving off a rustic vibe. But such a young man is the man-killer fiend that has been causing a lot of anxiety in Wangjing recently. At night, Su Meijun was sitting in her room when she suddenly heard the sound of a stone smashing against the window frame. Who? Su Meijun jumped out of the window and saw a figure standing on top of the wall. He was wearing a green robe and his hair was simply tied behind his head. He held a sword in his hand, or more accurately, a sharpened piece of iron. It was so simple that it couldn't be any simpler. There wasn't even a blade, only a rope tied around the end of the sword. I heard said your sword technique is very good. A slightly shy person spat out each word with a slight stutter. Draw your sword, you die. I live. Su Meijun originally thought it was a young martial artist who came to ask for advice. After all, the other party made it hard for people to raise their guard. But as soon as he heard this, his expression changed. Man-killer fiend? Draw your sword. Li Dai repeated. Su Meijun's expression changed a few times. As a confident martial artist, he naturally wouldn't think that he was weaker than others. But of the people who died under the hands of the man-killer fiend, he was very familiar with 2 of them, and they weren't any weaker than him. You don't draw your sword, I'll. Li Dai didn't know if it took too much effort to speak, but halfway through his sentence, he simply clasped his hands and bowed. A sword light flashed. Such a fast sword. Such a fast movement technique. Su Meijun only had enough time to think this. He instinctively unsheathed his sword and used his well-practiced sword technique. Ding. Su Meijun felt a weight on his hand, but the opponent's strength wasn't that great. But in the next second, a sword light drew a semicircle and slashed towards his neck. Soundless and colorless, Su Meijun twisted the sword in his hand and stabbed towards the opponent's chest without a sound. His first move was an ultimate technique. When the sword is drawn, it uses opposite forces and the sound of breaking air to cancel each other out. Unknowingly, the opponent has already been stabbed. It can kill the opponent soundless and colorless, hence its name. Especially in a night battle, its power is even greater. Often, the opponent doesn't even notice when the sword has already arrived. But the sword in Li Dai's hand was even faster. It spun in the air and flicked the rainwater towards Su Meijun's face. Not good. Just as Su Meijun had this thought, the rainwater was already in front of him. He could only wave his sleeves to block it and quickly retreat. If this rainwater hit his face, he might become unrecognizable and even affect his eyes. But as he blocked the rainwater, Su Meijun felt a pain in his chest. It's faster than the sword just now, Su Meijun suddenly realized. When Li Dai attacked, there was a ruthlessness that was the complete opposite of his usual shyness. His eyes were full of focus and devotion. One sword left a 3-inch long wound on Su Meijun's chest. The next sword went straight for Su Meijun's neck. It was almost like a shadow, not giving Su Meijun any chance to escape. Su Meijun blocked 2 more swords in a rather awkward manner. Seeing that the third sword was already in front of her, she couldn't dodge it anymore. She cried in her heart, "It's over." She couldn't understand why her opponent was so strong when they were both at the peak of the Earth embryo stage. But at this moment, a red, straight, 7-inch long, oddly shaped hidden weapon flew towards her with a sound of breaking air. Taking advantage of the time when Li Dai cut off the hidden weapon, Su Meijun rolled backwards in an extremely awkward manner and dodged this fatal sword. Both of them looked in the direction where the brick came from and saw a girl in blue holding an umbrella on the wall. She was sitting there, swinging her legs. She extended her other hand to the side, and a tall, thin man handed her a red hidden weapon. Not far away, another man in black was tearing down the wall. He broke it into pieces and placed them next to the tall, thin man. One was tearing down the wall, and the other was handing bricks. The scene looked quite harmonious. It's you. Li Dai's gaze froze. He didn't know when the other party had appeared. It's me. Honeysuckle held the brick in one hand, and the umbrella in the other. It's you. Li Dai's gaze froze. He didn't know when the other party had appeared. It's me. Honeysuckle held the brick in one hand and the umbrella in the other. I want to stop you. Honeysuckle seemed to think it was very funny. He mimicked Li Dai's words, making his face flush. A sword light cut across the night sky. Li Dai didn't have any protective feelings for the fairer sex. Honeysuckle seemed to be startled, and his body fell backward. In the next second, the whole wall flew into the air. While still in the air, it turned into countless bricks and pieces of cement, smashing toward Li Dai's face. Even Li Dai was caught off guard by this move. The water from the sword dance couldn't get in, and all the bricks and cement were swept away. "You're scaring me." Honeysuckle's figure appeared from behind the brick wall. Her face was adorable, and she seemed to be gnashing her teeth. This made Li Dai a little speechless. It was the first time he had encountered such a situation since he left the mountain, and he didn't know how to deal with it. "Yes, you can't hold back against an enemy." Li Dai said something that sounded like an explanation, and then his expression turned serious. If you weren't so cute, I would have killed you with a slap," Honeysuckle said angrily. "You want to fight? I'll beat you until you call me daddy today. Give me the knife." Honeysuckle stretched out his left hand, and another man in black appeared in the night. He respectfully handed over a 2-meter-long Xianhua axe. Judging by the size of the axe, it must be at least 50 kilograms. This isn't a knife," Li Dai said stubbornly, which made Honeysuckle's eyes widen. Even Su Meijun was somewhat speechless. The youth who had almost taken her life was actually such an honest fellow. Come. I'll let you make 3 moves first," Honeysuckle said carelessly with the axe on his back. Li Dai's expression turned serious. He could feel that the girl in front of him was very dangerous, so he didn't say anything more. He moved 4 to 5 meters away. The sword light was extremely beautiful, and it was dazzling. However, in the next second, the axe chopped down with the power to split the sky and the earth. The drizzle and the night sky were all split apart by this axe. Li Dai's figure flashed, and a palm-wide mark appeared on the ground where he was standing, and the ground 5 to 6 meters behind him. Even the soil was turned up. It was so powerful even before they made contact. One could imagine what would have happened if he hadn't dodged it. 3-3. Li Dai's expression became even more serious, and he stuttered even more. I lied to you. Didn't anyone tell you that girls lie? Honeysuckle smiled slyly and winked. If it weren't for this scene, if it weren't for the giant axe, if it weren't for the mark on the ground, Su Meijuan's heartbeat would have quickened as she looked at this elf-like girl with a sly smile. Li Dai opened his mouth, and he seemed even more clumsy. At this moment, the inn that had been alerted was completely lit up. Senior brother, senior brother? A young girl looked through Su Meijuan's window and immediately saw the people in the courtyard. She flipped over and jumped down. Senior brother, what's this? Su Meijun held out her hand to stop her from speaking. Honeysuckle swung his axe, and a white arc seemed to be visible in the air. Countless raindrops were smashed toward Li Dai. This was exactly the same as Li Dai's bullet rain. However, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. When the raindrops hit the ground and walls, there was even a rustling sound. Su Meijun was horrified to see countless tiny dots on the ground and walls. Spirit wheel. It must be a spirit wheel expert. Su Meijun exclaimed in her heart. Such a young spirit wheel expert. She started practicing martial arts in her mother's womb? Who is she? While Su Meijun was exclaiming in her heart, Honeysuckle had already swung her axe at Li Dai. Li Dai simply didn't dare to take it head-on. He moved his body slightly to the side and stabbed his sword 3 times in a row. The speed was so fast that even Honeysuckle had to face it head-on. However, there was after all a huge realm difference between them. Although Honeysuckle didn't have much combat experience, she had experienced life and death battles. Coupled with her innate talent for combat, she completely suppressed Li Dai in a few moves. Su Meijun felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. She laughed bitterly in her heart. An expert who almost took her life was like a puppet in the hands of this girl. After more than 10 moves, Li Dai couldn't avoid it. With a ding sound, the sword in his hand flew into the air. Honeysuckle's axe landed firmly on Li Dai's neck. She raised her chin slightly and said arrogantly, "Call me Daddy. A newcomer's new book. I can pass through a language book." Those who were interested could go and take a look. Chapter 1188. Li Dai didn't call him father after all. Honeysuckle didn't make things difficult for him. He threw the Xian flower axe aside, sending the person who caught it flying a few meters away. "Come with me." Honeysuckle glanced at Li Dai with disdain. You want me?" Li Dai stuttered and didn't know what to say. He couldn't beat him, so he suddenly didn't know what to do. After all, Li Dai was a rather innocent young man. "You're so weak that you can't even speak clearly. What can I ask you to do? I still need someone to serve the dishes and pour the water. You're the one." Honeysuckle was even more disgusted. Although he said that, Honeysuckle still felt that this child was quite fun. Simple, reserved, and stuttering. However, when he picked up the sword, he became a completely different person. Su Meijun really wanted to ask, "Is there a shortage of people to serve tea? Can I do it?" One had to know that all the spirit wheel experts had gone missing, and there wasn't anyone he could ask for advice from. Otherwise, he might have already stepped onto the path to heaven. "Don't even think about running. If you do, I'll break your legs. I'll do what I say. I'm fierce. I have hundreds of lackeys. Do you hear me?" Even after the blue-clothed girl and the man-killer fiend disappeared into the rain, Su Meijun was still in a daze. The man-killer fiend that's causing so much panic shouldn't appear again, right? Tonight was really dangerous. If it weren't for the blue-clothed girl, he probably wouldn't be able to see the sun tomorrow. Oh right, I forgot to ask the girl's name. It was just that the young girl came and left quickly. She was in such a hurry that he didn't have a chance to interrupt. "Senior Marshal brother, you've changed." The young girl looked at Su Meijuan's silent posture as he stared at the night sky for a long time. He's already gone, why are you still looking? Don't talk nonsense, he's an expert. Su Meijun waved her hand. Is it a woman? Yes. Beautiful, right? It seems like he's already gone. Are you still watching? Su Meijun pursed her lips and felt a headache coming on. Forget it, let's go back. By the way, who is that person? The junior marshal's sister had just remembered that there was another person. Man-killer fiend. Who? Man-killer fiends? The junior sister suddenly raised her voice. I almost couldn't see the sun for a while. It's raining, there won't be any sun in a while. Be serious. Su Meijun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The man-killer fiends came for senior brother? The girl was a bit scared. That's why I almost couldn't see the sun for a while. There won't be any sun in a while. It's going to rain, senior marshal brother. Junior marshal's sister emphasized again. Su Meijun was speechless. She looked at her junior sister, who was so honest that she had a heart attack, and then thought of that sly girl. This was reality. For the next few days, Su Meijun would occasionally stroll around the city. Only then did she find out that another martial artist was attacked that night. The man-killer fiend incident was still causing a lot of anxiety. Fortunately, through Su Meijun, the news of the man-killer fiend's capture also spread, as well as a young girl in a blue dress who liked to eat melon seeds. Su Meijun didn't even care about the martial arts competition anymore. He wasn't even a match for a man-killer fiend. The world was so big, and there might be many unknown experts. And that girl. Su Meijun strolled around the city to see if he had the chance to meet that girl. On one hand he wanted to thank her, and on the other hand he wanted to ask her for advice. He also wanted to find out the mystery of the disappearance of those spirit will experts. With that girl's strength and mysteriousness, she might know something. What made him feel regretful was that every time there was a martial arts competition, that girl would always appear at the side to eat melon seeds. However, these days he would go whenever there was a competition, but he never saw any trace of that girl. It was as if she disappeared after that night. However, he didn't give up. After all, the martial arts competition was about to start, and that girl might appear. Senior? You really don't want to participate in the martial arts competition? The girl looked regretful, but there was also some hope in her expression, as if she was hoping that Su Meijun would change his mind. No. Su Meijun shook his head and tidied up his clothes in front of the mirror. The mirrors in Dayo were really good. They were clear, and the figures in the mirror didn't have the slightest distortion. They also didn't turn black as easily as bronze mirrors. More importantly, it was very difficult to polish a bronze mirror to such a large size. In Dayo, such mirrors were even available in inns, but in Great Xia, they were very expensive. Let's go. Su Meijun brought his junior out of the inn, and went straight out of the city. On the way, he saw many practitioners who were traveling the same way as them. Most of them were riding tractors. The practitioners from Great Xia liked to try this kind of transportation, which was rather rare in Great Xia. It was indeed much more comfortable than a carriage. One by one, the young heroes stood in the back of the tractor, facing the wind. 5 kilometers south of Wangjing City, the original farmland had been transformed into an open arena. There were 9 arenas, 3 big and 6 small. The 3 big arenas were the main arenas, and the 6 small arenas were used for the preliminaries. In addition, there were layers of spectator seats around the arena, which could accommodate 3,000 people. It seemed like a lot. After all, there were only a few hundred practitioners from Great Xia, and the number of practitioners from the Yun Nation who came to participate was about the same. However, with the addition of the family and friends of many of the participating practitioners, some young people who came to broaden their horizons, and some onlookers, these spectator seats were far from enough. However, the officials in charge of this matter had already made preparations. In addition to adding a large number of spectator seats, they would also install a large screen outside the arena to broadcast the battles inside. Su Meijun and his junior got a seat with the invitation letter. They turned around and saw some of the more famous young practitioners around them. Many of them had interacted with them before, and they nodded to each other in greeting. At 8:30 in the morning, the Minister of War, Qin Chuan, went up to the center of the arena to give a speech. His voice was transmitted through the speakers in the arena. Although I see you as a bunch of bugs that I can crush with one foot, Her Highness is willing to give you a chance. In that case, show me your strength. Qin Chuan's merciless words made many of them angry, and they wanted to draw their swords and fight to the death. However, looking at the thousands of soldiers around them and the hundreds of winged cavalry warriors who were looking at them provocatively, they could only suppress their anger. Get him to come down. Ren Baqian, who was in the spectator stand, said to the guard beside him with a black face. This guy's opening speech was already like this? Ren Baqian didn't spend so much effort to select talents with potential just to turn them into his enemies. Qin Chuan didn't mind being called off the stage by Ren Baqian. The next person to go on stage was the MC that Ren Baqian had already arranged. After a provocative speech and explaining the schedule and the relevant prizes, the MC said in a high-pitched voice, "Next, let's welcome the lead band to perform." Many practitioners in the spectator stands were dumbfounded. Lead band? Band? What did that mean? They knew about performing on stage. However, as soon as they stood on the arena, there was an uproar from all around. Su Meijun was also surprised to see the girl in blue on the stage. Although she had expected her to appear here, she didn't expect her to appear in such a capacity. What was even more surprising was the identities of the other people. Li Yuanzhu and Lin Yu. Many people knew who these two people were. They were the two most powerful people in the martial arts world, and were extremely beautiful. No one would have thought that such people would actually perform on stage. It was simply unbelievable. Many people recalled the rumors that Li Yuanzhu was related to Dayo, and from the looks of it, it seemed to be true. In addition to Li Yuanzhu, Lin Yu, and the girl in blue, there were two other men. One of them was bald, and the other made Su Meijun's pupils shrink. It was the man-killer ghost. The man-killer ghost looked embarrassed and at a loss as he waited for Hua and the others to adjust their instruments. Hua played the drums, Li Yuanzhu played the zither, Lin Yu played the flute, and Xingrua played the bone flute. When the messy music gradually became unified and formed a melody, Hua whispered, "Don't mess it up, or I'll beat you to death." When the drumbeat seemed to beat on everyone's hearts, the man-killer ghost closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and roared as if he had used all his strength. The great river flows eastward, the stars in the sky join the Big Dipper. He actually didn't stutter. Hua nodded gently as a form of praise. Not bad. He had performed well after practicing for the past 2 days. Lin Yu and Xingrua couldn't sing this song so boldly. In the end, they managed to catch the man-killer ghost. Surprisingly, he didn't stutter as badly when he sang as when he spoke. After a week of passive resistance from Li Dai, Hua suppressed him with force, and threatening to strip him naked and hang him in front of his house, he finally finished practicing this song. Outside the stage, Ren Baqian almost vomited blood in his private room. Hua had prepared for this opening for a long time? F***CK. He turned to look at the others nearby, and found that they were listening with great interest. Especially that old fool, Qin Chuan. Although this song was a little strange, it was still quite to his liking. In fact, this song was quite good to the ears of many martial artists, and it even diluted their shock at Li Yuanzhu's appearance on stage in this situation. It sounded quite sentimental. Especially the lyrics, "Roar when you see injustice, strike when it's time to strike," were very much to their liking. Many people felt that this song was what they were thinking. After a few minutes, the song ended, and the man-killer ghost jumped off the stage as if he was running for his life. Hua ignored him with a grin, took the microphone and said, "Next, I present the song Tears Behind Prison Bars to everyone sitting here." Ren Baqian was speechless. Listening to the familiar melody, Ren Baqian was shocked. However, after thinking about it carefully, this song was really F***king appropriate. Chapter 1189. The song Tears Behind Prison Bars made many martial artists hold their swords in their hands and look around in confusion. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? The lead band became famous with a single song. Many people wanted to curse at him. If it wasn't for the sake of the two seniors, Li Yuanzhu and Lin Yu. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't defeat him. At noon, Su Meijun heard about the girl's identity from others. the Princess of Dayo Chiyuqing. After all, some of the families and chambers of commerce in the Yun nation would go to the imperial capital from time to time. Many people had seen this princess who liked to drink at the Shanhui house. The identity of Erhua spread from those people to the martial artists of the Yun nation, and finally reached the ears of the martial artists of Great Xia. This made many martial artists feel the malice of the imperial court. Su Meijun was surprised to hear the news. What surprised him even more was that she was only 11 years old. Su Meijun suddenly felt a little fearful, and a heavy sense of guilt when she thought about the other party's age a few days ago. After debating for an hour whether or not she was a pervert, Su Meijun went to the martial arts competition organizing team. I was delayed due to some matters. Is it too late to register now? This is my invitation letter. Those who have an invitation letter can enter the seated group, but you definitely can't enter now. You'll have to fight from the preliminary round. If you agree, there's still an empty spot. The organizing team could be said to be the people who understood His Highness's thoughts the best. In the face of such a famous martial artist, they also adhered to the spirit of special treatment and gave him a way out. Then let's start from the preliminary round. Su Meijun made a prompt decision. Senior brother, didn't you say that you wouldn't participate? I changed my mind, Su Meijun said. After knowing the girl's identity, he felt that it would be very difficult to get in touch with her and ask her questions. However, if he obtained a good ranking in the martial arts conference, he might have a chance to get in touch with her. Father, did I sing well? Erhua scurried in front of Renbaqian and used the word scurried at lightning speed. Did you sing it? Renbaqian chuckled. I was the one who formed the band, so of course I get the credit, Honeysuckle grumbled. Not bad. Renbaqian nodded slightly and changed his tone. You've been out long enough. Come back with me? I want to stay for a few more days to see how they fight. Besides, this is also a chance to learn from others, isn't it? Honeysuckle quickly found an excuse. It's up to you, but you can't delay your homework. I've already brought your homework and exam papers. Find a time to finish them, and have someone send them back. Renbaqian gave the imperial bodyguard a look, and the imperial bodyguard immediately understood what he meant. He took out over 50 kilograms of homework and test papers, and slammed them on the table. Honeysuckle felt his heart shatter. He wasn't her biological son, definitely not. Do you want me to go back with you? Honeysuckle asked. The homework can be reduced by half. Renbaqian had a look of approval on his face. Forget it. If I die, then I die. I'm not going back. Honeysuckle shouted and disappeared without a trace. You stay here and remember to watch the princess finish her task. Renbaqian gave the imperial bodyguard an arduous task. The guard's forehead was covered in sweat. Your Highness, what about your safety? Should he let Cho Chi and Zuotai stay? The two of them can fight better than you alone. Renbaqian patted the guard's shoulder and entrusted him with an important task. By the way, keep an eye on Li Dai and other people who appear near the princess. The princess is young and doesn't know the dangers of the world. If anything goes wrong, kill them first. If there's a mistake, don't let it go. Understood. All right. Renbaqian nodded and walked away. He had come all the way here just to watch the opening ceremony and leave without even showing his face. As for the rest of the competition, someone would naturally report it to him. If he wanted to watch it, he could see it in the capital. After Renbaqian left, Honeysuckle resumed his days of eating melon seeds, watching the competition, and strolling around with his new subordinates. At night, he gritted his teeth and curled up in his room to do his homework. As the competition progressed, some outstanding martial artists gradually became known to the world. Even Renbaqian had heard of them. For example, Great Xiazanata sword Jiang Zhong, Light Rain sword Su Meijun, the Mei sisters from the Yun nation, and Xiong Shuetai and Shiranen from the Aboriginals. Are you going to challenge him? Honeysuckle asked as he sat in the private room and watched Jiang Zhong use his sword to form a net that enveloped his opponent. Yes. Li Dai sat in his chair and straightened his body. Why? Is there a grudge? Honeysuckle asked curiously. Li Dai scratched his head and said, he is the most famous. Honeysuckle's curiosity immediately turned into disgust. And then? He's very, very powerful. He sharpens his sword, accumulates his power, and wins in one battle. This was a way for great Xia martial artists to hone their mental strength. If they won the last battle, their mental strength would be at its peak, allowing them to break through the Earth embryo stage and enter the path to heaven. However, this required the life of an expert to be the cornerstone, be it the opponent or oneself. Honeysuckle thought about it and commented, "Boring." Li Dai was so angry that his face turned red. At the same time, a young man looked at the green on the distant horizon and was ecstatic. "I see green, I see green." "Really? Where?" When the young men and women behind him heard this, their exhausted bodies suddenly glowed with new strength. "It's right in front of us. We can definitely reach it tonight." The first young man had 2 short horns on his head and was very tall. "If we walk fast, we can get out of here tonight," Lin Dong, who had been following behind them, suddenly said. "That's great." This MLM team finally walked out of the area outside the Wall of 2 Realms that was filled with poisonous fire. Late that night, the exhausted young men and women stepped on the grass and fell down. Lin Dong opened his arms and felt the yuan qi that was rushing toward him. It was even denser than at the Wall of 2 Realms. In his eyes, the whole world seemed to be different. The solid bottleneck in his body began to loosen, which made Lin Dong a little excited. As long as he found a place to cultivate, he believed that he would be able to break through in no time. "Leader, this place." Su Jiaojia, who had been standing behind Lin Dong, was pleasantly surprised. "Not a bad place." Lin Dong looked into the distance with his deep eyes. It was as if he was embracing the world with his hands. Thinking of the heavy responsibility on his shoulders, he finally gave up the idea of finding a place to cultivate. No matter what, he had to let these foreign races gain a foothold among the foreign races first. "Let them eat the soul-cleansing pill first," Lin Dong ordered. After walking for a few more days, the group finally saw the field. This place was very close to the Grey Thorn Tribe's village. "Lei Li Lu Sheng, the 2 of you go to the Grey Thorn Tribe's village. Contact me once every 3 days through the radio and report the situation," Lin Dong said to a young thunder barbarian and a young girl with a snake tail. "Yes." The 2 nodded. "Whether it is you or them, you are all the children of the Ajati matriarch. You must let them know the Ajati matriarch's real name. No matter what, do not clash with them. They are just ignorant and do not know the great existence. The reason why I want you to go is to let them understand these principles." "Understood," the 2 said loudly, their eyes filled with fervor. "Go." Lin Dong nodded and led the rest of the group to go their separate ways. They still had to go to other places. The 6 of them could first gain a foothold in 3 foreign races' villages. Then, with these 3 foreign races' villages as the starting point, they would continue to spread southward. A day later, the short Grey Thorn Tribe's village panicked. They looked at the 2 higher races' arrival with trepidation, even if they were 2 young men. "I wonder what the 2 of you want us to do here." The village head of the Grey Thorn Tribe had a suspicious look on his face. This wasn't the territory of the Thunder Tribe or the Serpent Tribe. If he hadn't been to Stainless City before, he wouldn't have been able to recognize these 2 upper races. "It's okay, don't panic. We are here to help you." Lu Xing smiled. "Do you know Amway? Know the Ajati matriarch?" Miaoshu House. Chapter 1190. Oh, 3 villages have been invaded? Not bad. Rinpochian smiled after hearing the news from the radio station. This was good news, and his move had finally begun to work. Although the missionary work hadn't reached his expectations, this was only the beginning. Back then, he, Lin Dong, and Xing Ruo had put in a lot of effort and couldn't find any mistakes in the teachings of the Ajati matriarch. As long as the other party's divine system was absorbed, it would be easy to eliminate the other party's rejection. Your God is an identity of the Ajati matriarch, and we also believe in her. Would you object? If you object, could it be that in your eyes, the God you believe in isn't the only one? Isn't it supreme? Since it's the only one, then my theory is fine. Isn't it very reasonable? Teachings? Are the teachings passed down by the gods or by you? If there is a contradiction, then your understanding is wrong. This kind of sophistry, coupled with the decision to integrate other divine systems from the beginning, was enough to break down the defense in the other party's heart. After all, this wasn't a confrontation, but absorption and integration. Most of the various religions guided people to do good, and all creatures yearned for the light. This was the nature of survival. As long as there was no conflict in the general direction, then small problems were easy to solve. Good news came from the south of the barrier, but after returning to Earth, Renbachian heard bad news. You used a nuclear bomb to blow up the capital of Thunder Barbarian? Renbachian raised his voice in surprise. This was a decision made after many discussions. Yongsun looked serious. What was the result? Renbachian asked. Thunder Barbarian King escaped, but he was also seriously injured. Yongsun's expression didn't look good. What exactly happened? Renbachian hated this kind of situation. In view of your warning and speculation about the strength of Thunder Barbarian King, a total of 3 nuclear bombs with a yield of 1. 3 megatons were dropped in 3 directions of the palace. Ha! Renbachian sneered. His warning was for them not to use force against Thunder Barbarian King. He didn't expect that in just a few months, even Thunder Barbarian King's capital would be blown up. Did they feel that they had stepped into the interstellar era and were inflated? The casualties of the Thunder Barbarian capital is 50%, and the rest of the population will find it difficult to survive for a year under the radiation. However, as you said, Thunder Barbarian King reacted before the nuclear bomb exploded, and was injured but not killed. What happened next? Renbachian believed that something else must have happened. Otherwise, Yongsun wouldn't have come looking for him. Yongsun was silent for a moment before saying, "Now the other 2 Thunder Barbarian kingdoms have also made their move. They have already sent people across the sea." Don't tell me that's why you're here. Thunder Barbarian King only had 3 people. Even if they found a forward operating base, they could just change to another one. They can't possibly plant flags all over the planet, Renbachian replied casually. He was wondering what else Yongsun had not said. From the beginning until now, he had probably been talking nonsense. Thunder Barbaric King was seriously injured? It was probably just a light injury. At the very least, he would be able to jump around with his injuries. Although the forward operating base was valuable, it was not worth fighting with 3 Thunder Barbarian Kings. As long as he avoided these 3 Thunder Barbarian Kings and a few Thunder Barbarian experts, the others would not be too difficult to deal with. An expert like the Thunder Barbarian King had already undergone a qualitative change and was no longer an ordinary creature. I wonder if you have any way to help us capture a Thunder Barbarian King? If there is such a living specimen, I believe that we will have a huge harvest, and the nation will also give you a huge. Yongsun finally revealed his true intentions. However, before he could finish his sentence, the screen went black. Renbachian expressionlessly turned off the communication device with a hint of anger in his eyes. Capture? How to capture? Even a nuclear bomb couldn't do anything. What were those people planning? To let the Empress fight to the death? There was no other possibility. After all, in their eyes, the Empress was a powerful being that no longer belonged to humans. They had overestimated the Empress. They had overestimated themselves. Not to mention whether they could defeat them. Even if they could, they would not go to such a distant galaxy to fight to the death for them. Renbachian sat on the sofa without saying a word. His eyes were gloomy. He hadn't been this angry in a long time. After a while he contacted Ren Wanyan and said, "Wanyan, help me find out who is targeting your sister-in-law. In addition, send me the details of what happened in the 4-leaf clover planet." Something happened? Ren Wanyan's expression turned solemn. Is someone crazy? He asked. One had to know that the Empress's strength was well known among the higher-ups of various countries on Earth. Someone actually dared to target her. Was he crazy? You investigate first. Renbachian waved his hand and didn't want to say more. Renbachian believed that someone would be willing to leak the news to him. After hanging up, Renbachian pondered again, and felt that this matter wasn't as simple as someone targeting her. There might also be an intention to probe. Renbachian rubbed his forehead and gradually fell into deep thought. What else was behind the probing? Rinpoche didn't like to deal with people who played politics because of this. It was tiring. Behind every intention, there might be another 10 or 8 circles. They wouldn't show their fangs if they didn't make you dizzy. Rinpoche felt that in terms of brains, he would never be able to match them in this lifetime. Fortunately, his fists were bigger than theirs. Things went as he expected. 3 hours later, Run Wanyan sent a request to contact him. Citigroup. I convinced a few people to push for it. This might include some exchanges, and it would be difficult for that person to stop it directly, Run Wanyan said, and then mentioned a few more names. Who gave you the information? Rinpoche suddenly asked. That man's secretary. Rinpoche rubbed his forehead. He couldn't be bothered to guess whether that person wasn't in a good position to stop him, or if he was just taking advantage of the situation. No matter what they thought, as long as his fist was big enough, and as long as humans had not completely left Earth, it would not affect him much. As for those few people, it's not easy to move either. Not only them, but even the white flag was not easy to deal with. After all, this was a private matter that could not be brought to the table. Moreover, all the countries were working together to play landlord. How could he drag someone off the table and beat him up? After thinking about it, he came up with an idea. Remove the flag from the dojo. Since you're making trouble for me, I'll make trouble for you. If they threw a bunch of Earthwheel experts into the United States, they would have a headache and would have to bring 2 more bodyguards with them every day. In particular, after the uproar caused by the Empress, the United States was full of vigilance against strong practitioners. On the other hand, there was another kind of fanaticism among the people. Talented youths were recruited into the dojo. After entering the dojo, they would need to earn contribution points to learn higher-level martial arts. Over time, these people would become the blades of the dojo. Talented youths were recruited into the dojo. After entering the dojo, they would need to earn contribution points to learn higher-level martial arts. Over time, these people would become the blades of the dojo. Chapter 1191. The registration of the company was rejected? I heard that every state in the United States is different. Not every state? Why? Everyone's visas were rejected. Rinpoche threw the communication device with an indignant look on his face. I crossed the ocean to open a martial arts center to boost your economy. Why are you acting like you're guarding against me? Someone. Curator. Arrange for 50 winged cavalry warriors to come. Rinpoche got up. When he went downstairs, the 50 winged cavalry warriors were already waiting for him. They weighed more than 150 kilograms, had fierce faces, and scars all over their bodies. They were the kind of people who would go unnoticed wherever they went. Many of the winged cavalry warriors looked at each other and immediately understood what was going on. Curator, who are we going to beat? You said to twist their heads off, but I'm sure I won't beat the sh*t out of them. Actually, it's not interesting to twist their heads off. It's more interesting to beat their brains out. Sai brain juice is sweet. Who knows? Let me tell you, this is a cold knowledge. The scene changed from the smell of brains to a battle between salty and sweet factions. These messy words immediately made the faces of the Messier 87 personnel turn green. This is brain juice, not tofu pudding, brothers. Also, what are they going to do? 50 Earthwheel experts with extremely violent tendencies wanted to fight a war? Get in the car and go. Rinpoche sat in the car in the middle, and soon received a communication request from Yang Sr. What are you going to do? Yang Sun was livid. Sir, can you not cause trouble? Can't you tell me who provoked you? Don't worry, I'm just going to ask why they didn't apply for visas for my staff. Rinpoche looked calm at this time. However, it would be strange if Yang Sun could be at ease. 20 flying cars that had just gotten their flight permits went straight to Shanghai. After arriving in the suburbs, it took them another 2 hours to arrive at the Consulate General due to the damn traffic. By the time they arrived, the Consulate General was already facing a formidable enemy, and the roads on both sides had been sealed. Curator, who are we going to beat up? Or kill them all? The 50 bald men got out of the car and began to loosen up their muscles with fierce looks in their eyes. Beat, beat, beat. We are here to consult, Renbachian scolded. Sir, what do you want? I asked. Why didn't you give us visas? Are you not giving them money or are you discriminating against them for being ugly? Renbachian grinned and squinted at the row of military officials and guards at the entrance of the consulate, as well as the people from the Armed Forces Command not far away. Renbachian saw 3 Earthwheel experts from the Armed Forces Command standing at the back of the crowd, looking like onlookers. There are rules for applying for entry visas. The people from the Consulate General broke out in a cold sweat. Which rule did we not comply with? According to the latest derivative clause of the Biological Weapons Convention, Earthwheel experts are strictly prohibited from entering the United States, the person from the Consulate General said while wiping his sweat. Renbachian was stunned and turned to look at the people from the Armed Forces Command. Is there such a treaty? Also, what does the Biological Weapons Convention mean? Can you explain to me what a biological weapon is? The people of the Armed Forces Command began to sweat and turned on their communicators to ask for information from the rear. This is a recently implemented rule. The people from the Consulate General were sweating even more, as if they had just been fished out of the water. Not everyone could remain indifferent in the face of 50 ferocious men surrounding them. Renbachian was speechless. Damn, he felt that something wasn't quite right. The United States did announce this rule yesterday. The people from the Armed Forces Command emphasized the word, yesterday, and looked at the people from the Consulate General with a strange look. Renbachian was speechless. In order to prevent us from entering the country, they actually introduced a new clause overnight? You guys have worked hard. Do you have a fake visa? Renbachian directly asked the people from the Armed Forces Command. The Armed Forces Command was speechless. How are we supposed to respond to this? The faces of the people from the Consulate General darkened. Mr. Run, this is illegal. You guys can stand here and protest. Yes, stand here or sit down. Whatever you like. Renbachian pointed to the line in front of the people from the Consulate General. There's no need to stand too close together. Why are you standing so sparsely? You can even squeeze through a dog. Protest? I can protest in our territory, right? Renbachian casually said. Even if someone said no, he wasn't going to listen. You just stabbed me with a knife. Aren't you going to let me vent my anger? Is Earth owned by your family? Does the Consulate General have a back door? The 16 of you go to the back door. Remember, we are here to protest, not to smash, burn and rob. Put away your ferocious looks and show your indignation. Do you understand? Do you know what indignation is? Yes, that's it. Renbachian was satisfied to see the winged cavalry warriors gnashing their teeth and glaring angrily at him. Someone will come to deliver food and take over your shift. You guys can continue to protest here. Mr. Ren. The people from the Consulate General and the Armed Forces Command felt their scalps go numb. They had completely blocked the Consulate General. Renbachian ignored them and went straight to the car. He was finally in a better mood. He returned to Wuxia City, arranged for someone to deliver food, and returned to Dayo. 5 days later, when Renbachian returned, he found that his communication device was about to explode from Yongsen's calls. Mr. Run, Uncle Run, please reply. It has been half a month. When did you withdraw your people? Renbachian pondered for a long time and finally remembered this matter. After returning to Dayo for a few days, he had been in the laboratory every day and had forgotten about this matter. He immediately replied, "Oh, I forgot." Yongsun was delighted to see Renbachian's reply, but he almost vomited blood when he saw the content of the reply. Forgot? Forget your grandpa. The back door of the American Consulate General in Shanghai was blocked half a month ago. This matter was even on the international news. Have they agreed to enter? Renbachian replied a few minutes later. Yongsun scratched his head. With your current aggressive look, how would the American consulate dare to let you enter? They didn't agree. We can't not protest such discriminatory treatment, right? Renbachian replied again, and threw the communication device aside. He drew a screen in the air. It was a picture of Thunder Barbarian capital from the sky. The time was in the morning. 3 cylindrical objects left the spacecraft and fell toward Thunder Barbarian capital. When they were about 1,000 meters away from Thunder Barbarian capital, the tall king appeared in their field of vision. After looking into the sky, Thunder Barbarian paused for a moment before disappearing in an instant. Renbachian had to slow down the video to see that figure clearly. There was a person in between. The speed was 700 meters per second, which was faster than the Empress. When the Empress came back a few days ago, Renbachian did some tests and found that the highest speed was only 500 meters per second. Then 3 balls of white light lit up on the screen until the mushroom cloud completely obscured the image. This wasn't the first time Renbachian had seen this video, but he was still amazed by Thunder Barbarian's ability to detect danger. Even if he had never seen a nuclear bomb or even knew about it, he could detect the danger in a short period of time and immediately make the decision to leave. With Thunder Barbarian's speed, he could definitely leave the center of the nuclear bomb before it exploded. As for the periphery of the explosion, the damage caused to Thunder Barbarian was limited. In fact, on the day of the explosion, the spacecraft had detected the traces of the Thunder Barbaric King in another city hundreds of miles away. After all, Thunder Barbarian was too powerful and couldn't be concealed after leaving the main hall made of unknown materials. This time, Thunder Barbarian was obviously vigilant. Although the spacecraft could detect traces of Thunder Barbarian, it was almost impossible to lock onto him again. I wonder what will happen next. Renbachian had some guesses. After demonstrating his strength, there would naturally be peace talks. It depended on whether the other party could accept it. Renbachian felt that it would be very difficult. He heard that the Thunder Barbarians were looking for traces of Earthlings everywhere, and were digging cellars in various cities. It had to be said that no race was stupid. After investigating the scene, the Thunder Barbarians quickly found a way to deal with nuclear weapons. Although it would still cause a lot of damage, it wasn't enough to make them give up the war. Chapter 1192. Renbachian did what he had to do next. Occasionally he checked the news on the internet and saw the group of burly men from his martial arts center, even though they didn't show their faces. The winged cavalry warriors and disciples above the earth will level took turns in the martial arts center. Dozens of them stood there with signs of protest, and even a dog couldn't get in. If it weren't for the delivery drones, a few of them would have starved to death. What made him feel the most helpless was that the United States didn't even care about their reputation. Other than occasionally protesting in the country, they didn't care about anything else. In the end, they simply announced that the consulate would be renovated. In any case, if I don't care about my reputation, don't even think about coming over. In the end, someone joked, if others don't invite you in, you can't just barge in with a knife. Now that you've made a fuss, your face is in the mud. After protesting at the consulate for a month, Renbachian took the opportunity to withdraw his men. The consulate was renovated for another 2 months before it reopened. In any case, no one knew where it was being renovated. He just heard that the consul had returned to recuperate due to heart problems. The 3-month martial arts conference in Wangjing was also coming to an end. The most popular item during this period of time was probably the high-tensile anti-cutting underwear. After this item was advertised during the martial arts conference, it sold like crazy. Especially after a few wretched fighters who specialized in attacking the bottom 3 advanced. No one wanted to make a single mistake in the arena. Not to mention being speechless, they wouldn't even be able to return to Great Xia. Su Meijun sat in a restaurant and looked around the crowd from time to time. After asking around, he heard that a girl like the one he saw the other day often appeared nearby. In fact, he had already asked around a few such places, but none of them had the person he was looking for. I don't know if this one is the one. Su Meijun took a sip of wine and sighed. How am I going to ask her when I see her? Will she tell me? Su Meijun didn't know about this, but this was the easiest way for him to get closer to the truth. Brother Su, I heard that you have been asking about a girl these days. May I know which girl caught your eye? A young man at the table next to him laughed. You can't talk about this. Su Meijun waved his hands. With that person's identity, he couldn't just casually spread the news. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. Look at how nervous Brother Su is. The young man laughed loudly. Baseless rumors may not necessarily be false. Another young man waved his fan and laughed. Brother Su, don't let down your junior sister. The other valiant and formidable-looking girl also laughed, but there was a bit of truth in her words. Junior sister Su Meijun was almost hanging on his body, that posture. Even a blind person could see. Su Meijun shook her head lightly. She couldn't explain it clearly to them. After sitting for a long time and seeing that the sky had darkened, Su Meijun still did not see the person she was looking for. She shook her head slightly. It seemed like she had made a wasted trip again. Just as he stood up and was about to leave, he glanced outside and froze. Ecstasy surged from the bottom of his heart. It was her. Even if he got the wrong girl, the man-killer fiend behind her, even if it's turned to ash, he'll still recognize it. Unable to care about anything else, Su Meijun threw down $200 bills and hurriedly ran downstairs. Brother Su, you're in such a hurry. Could it be that you found it? The few of them laughed and moved closer to the window. Miss, please wait. Su Meijun went downstairs, found the figure in the crowd, and hurriedly ran over. Just as I thought, Brother Su still wants to deny it. The few people upstairs laughed. Come, let's go down and watch. Let's see what kind of girl can make Brother Su fall head over heels for her. Miss, please wait. Su Meijun saw that Tu Hua was ignoring her, and hurriedly called out again. Just as she was about to step behind Tu Hua, she was stopped by someone. It's you? Li Dai raised his eyebrows. I didn't think you'd still remember me. Su Meijun laughed at herself. Not dead. Died under my sword. Remember, Li Dai said seriously. In reality, she was the only one. Hearing this, Su Meijun didn't know what to say. If it weren't for that girl that day, she would have died a long time ago. Thinking that, he didn't want to waste any more time with the man-killer fiend, loudly called out. Miss, please wait. Please wait, please wait, please wait. Don't you find it annoying? I'm in a hurry to go back and do my homework. How can you not have any eyesight? You're so annoying. Tu Hua was annoyed after being called out a few times, so he turned around and started scolding him. The people who caught up just happened to hear Tu Hua's scolding, so they laughed. Miss, you probably don't know this is the light rain sword. Su Meijun's face turned red, wanting to cover that person's mouth. I don't care if you're the light rain sword, heavy rain sword or not. You guys are annoying. I want to go home and do my homework, do you hear me? If you hear me, then get the hell out of here. Tu Hua's face was like a steamed bun. Angrily turned around and left. Who cares what you guys are? Nothing is more important than doing homework. Su Meijun still wanted to say something, but a cold light flashed, and a sword was already at his throat. I have to do my homework. Don't get in the way. Li Dai used a lot of energy to finish his sentence with a serious face. Hiss, such a fast sword, who is that? The young warriors who joined in the fun all gasped. Before they could even see clearly, the sword was already at Su Meijun's throat. They asked themselves if it was them, they probably wouldn't even be able to block one move. Don't ask, if you ask, it's the man-killer ghost. Su Meijun's face was gloomy. They finally found that person, but they didn't even have a chance to ask a question. He's the man-killer ghost? He's actually still in Wangjing? The few people were shocked. Who's that girl? Su Meijun hesitated, but in the end he didn't reveal Tu Hua's identity. However, before he said anything, the valiant girl suddenly exclaimed. I remember, she's the one who beat the drum at the beginning of the martial arts competition. The one who was with Li Dai, the princess of Dayo, Qi Yuqing. I remember the tears behind the prison window very clearly. The few people's faces changed. The man-killer ghost is from Dayo's imperial court? The few people immediately thought of a bunch of schemes to attract the talents of Great Xia through the martial arts competition, and then catch them all in one fell swoop. They even made up a novel with 3 million words. It's not like that. The man-killer ghost isn't from Dayo's imperial court. That day, I almost died in his hands, but the princess happened to save me. This man-killer ghost is chained to an iron chain. Enlistment? The man-killer ghost killed so many people. How can they let him go so easily? One person said angrily. However, another person thought of something and asked, Brother Su, why are you looking for the princess? Just asking a question. Su Meijun sighed softly. It seems that this princess isn't easy to deal with, that person said. Su Meijun thought for a while. Indeed, she wasn't easy to deal with. However, it seemed that the princess was really anxious now. But what was she anxious about? From what she said, was she going back to do her homework? What was homework? A series of cultivation methods appeared in Su Meijun's mind. Finally, she sighed faintly and said, although she's noble and has a high appetite, she's so self-disciplined and hard-working. No wonder she has such strength at such a young age. What strength? Someone asked curiously. Is that princess an expert? According to their classification, she should be a cardinal heaven expert, which is also a spirit will expert. Su Meijun said. That princess is only 14 or 15 years old, right? It's terrifying to have such a level of cultivation at such a young age. The person who asked earlier wasn't very well informed and was quite shocked after hearing this. You guys are thinking too much. She was born an earth will expert, and she's only 11 years old now. Someone instantly explained. Really? Just ask anyone and you guys will know. It was quite a sensational event back then. Speaking of which, you guys have been in Wangjing for so long, but you guys haven't even heard of this. Everyone fell silent after hearing this. She was born an earth will expert, but they trained so hard. What was the point of it? They couldn't compare. They couldn't compare. Actually, you can say that she's 13 years old. She stayed in her mother's womb for more than 2 years than others. Chapter 1193. After finding the area where Lu Hua appeared, Su Meijun waited at this restaurant whenever he had time. Even his junior sister sighed and said, "You have changed, dog." However, Su Meijun didn't have a chance to ask Lu Hua. Almost every time he appeared, he was in a hurry. His words were always the same. "I'm in a hurry to go home and do my homework." Su Meijun didn't get what he wanted even after the martial arts competition ended. However, the top 16 of the martial arts competition had to go to the capital to receive the award from the prince, which gave him some hope. "You hit me with this thing?" Lu Hua's eyes widened as he angrily pointed at the iron rod in Run Baqian's hand. "A bat? Did I pick it up from the garbage?" "I gave it to you while playing games." Run Baqian waved the iron rod in his hand. "Don't run, stop. Tell me why you hit me first." Lu Hua wasn't stupid and ran very fast. "You still have the cheek to ask? What did you sing at the closing ceremony? Kill that great Xiao man." "Exinja, hold her down." Run Baqian was so angry that the veins on his temples were popping. Exinja looked at the father and daughter chasing after her, and found it interesting. Even an iceberg that hadn't moved for thousands of years showed signs of melting. "I just thought it was fun." "What's the relationship between the lyrics and the title of the song? You actually hit me with that thing over such a trivial matter?" Lu Hua felt wronged as he climbed over the wall and ran away from home. Ren Baqian threw the iron rod on the ground and was so angry at Lu Hua that his liver was in pain. He had spent so much effort to organize the martial arts competition and recruit talents from all over the world, but Lu Hua's tears behind prison bars and "kill that great Xiao man" had ruined everything. "Your Highness, would you like some tea?" Exinja asked leisurely. "I'm so angry that I'm not thirsty anymore." Run Baqian rubbed his temples. Lu Hua was really troublesome. "Drink some tea to get rid of the heat," Exinja added, causing Run Baqian to be slightly distracted. "Since when did you know this?" Rin Baqian turned his gaze to Exinja. She was still dressed as a bespectacled woman, but her glasses were different every day. Over the years, Ren Baqian would often put glasses on Exinja as if it was her only hobby. Oh no, only two. As a result, the walls of Exinja's room in the palace were filled with glasses. A rough count showed that there were at least 800 of them, if not 1,000. She would change them every day. Exinja pushed up her glasses and thought for a long time before replying. "I've been suffering from excessive internal heat these days, and have gotten pimples." Ren Baqian carefully sized up the pimple again and again, but he couldn't find it. Su Meijun sat in the bus and looked at the scenery on both sides. She suddenly had a thought. If you don't come to the imperial capital, you won't know the prosperity of the world. He had been to the imperial capital of the Great Xia before, and although it was prosperous, it gave him a feeling of lethargy. It was completely incomparable to the imperial capital, which was full of vitality and vitality. Needless to say, the capital of the Great Xia dynasty was not even as prosperous as this place. Looking at the tall buildings outside, the plaques shining with various colors, the street lamps that were dozens of meters apart, the pedestrians wearing all kinds of clothes, and the smiles on many people's faces, this feeling became even stronger. "Hey, why aren't you leaving yet?" the junior sister asked loudly. "I'm stuck in a traffic jam. Everything about the imperial capital is good, but the traffic jam is terrible. It was better 2 years ago, but it's especially congested this year," the driver replied while drinking water. "Sigh, back in the day, I was also a tractor god on the highway. When I turned a corner, others couldn't even see my shadow. Now I can't even move because of the traffic jam," the driver lamented. "And then? Why aren't you driving the tractor anymore? Did you overturn and break your leg?" A warrior from the Yin nation who knew better laughed. "No, I was sentenced to half a year of hard labor for dangerous driving and intentionally injuring others." The driver chuckled. "Not many." That warrior from the Yin nation nodded. "No, I was racing with someone at that time. In the end, that person's car overturned, and I hit him when he fell out. That person was hospitalized for a month and sentenced to 3 months for dangerous driving. At that time, both of us were mining together. Those who hadn't experienced that period wouldn't know how lively the highway was at that time. The Transportation Bureau issued fines every day and became the richest department in the imperial court." Su Meijun listened while thinking silently. Sure enough, the people here were more energetic, even for a driver. "Brother Jiang, is there anything we need to pay attention to?" someone asked loudly. The person who was addressed as Brother Jiang was called Jiang Yu, and he was the son of an aristocratic family in the Yun nation. Upon hearing this, he said, "Just follow the rules. Also, don't fight. You will be punished regardless of whether you're right or wrong. If you have a conflict with someone, there is a fighting arena in the city, and disputes are usually settled there. Also, the brothels in the city only sell their skills and not their bodies. If the lady likes them, they will keep you for the night. If they don't force them. It's different from other places," someone said with a smile. "Another thing is that you can go to any restaurant in the city, but it's best not to go to Shanhui House," Jiang Yu added. "Why? That's a place where the second and third generations of officials hang out. It's easy to get into trouble there," Jiang Yu said simply. In fact, it wasn't just getting into trouble. That place had almost become the Aboriginals' private property. Other than the Aboriginals, only a few people went in and out without trouble. The others would inevitably encounter provocations and trouble. Su Meijun's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. After settling down at night, Su Meijun inquired about the location of Shanhui House. She might be able to get some information there. When she arrived at the entrance, she heard a lot of people laughing inside. Their voices could even be heard on the street. Then she heard a young girl's voice. "Is anyone treating me to a drink? I ran away from home and didn't bring any money with me." "Ha, the princess ran away from home again. Is it because she didn't finish her homework or because she failed an exam?" Many people smiled. If the princess ran away from home in other places, it would be a big deal. But here, it was a common occurrence. They were used to it and delighted to see it. Su Meijun stepped into the restaurant. "It's my treat." As soon as she said this, the restaurant quieted down. One by one, burly men or valiant young girls looked over with unfriendly expressions. Even if the princess wanted someone to treat her to a drink, it depended on who it was. Could any Tom, Dick, or Harry treat the princess to a drink? "Brat, have you grown out all your hair?" a burly man provoked, causing a burst of laughter. "Why is it you again? You're so annoying." Honeysuckle looked over and immediately rested his chin on the table. He said impatiently, "Hey, brat, are you going to leave on your own, or should I throw you out?" A burly man immediately stood up. "I just want to ask you one thing," Su Meijun said sincerely. "Get out." A fierce wind came from the side. A slap was getting closer and closer to his face. Su Meijuan's heart tightened. If this slap landed on someone else, their skull would probably be smashed. She immediately took 3 steps back, and took another 3 steps forward. Then, she cupped her hands at Honeysuckle. Her retreat and advance were so fast that only afterimages could be seen. Su Meijuan's nickname was Light Rain Sword. Other than her light rain sword technique, her lightness skills were also quite outstanding. Forget it, don't do anything. Honeysuckle waved his hand weakly to stop the burly man's next move. He raised his head and asked impatiently, "What do you want to ask?" Su Meijun didn't know if this question should be asked in front of everyone. He looked around and saw that everyone had an unfriendly expression on their faces. He knew that this was the only time he could ask. He lowered his voice slightly and said, "May I ask Princess if you know where Ma Hongyu, Double Ring Sword Jiang Zixi, Su Gongso, and other experts are now?" Honeysuckle looked up at him, and was a little annoyed. "Is that all?" "Yes." Su Meijuan's heart jumped. He felt that he was finally getting close to the big secret of the disappearance of so many experts. They went to war. Honeysuckle continued to lie on the table. He puffed up his cheeks and shouted, "Waiter, pour some wine." "War?" Su Meijun was shocked. "War with who?" The next day, when Su Meijun went to the main hall, the waves in his heart still hadn't calmed down. The words that came out of the princess' mouth were simply too shocking. There were foreign tribes in the south of the 60,000 mountains? Those missing experts were fighting with the foreign tribes in the south? This was an answer that Su Meijun could never have imagined before. Even when he was in the main hall, he was still a little distracted. Other than him, everyone else looked serious and didn't dare to look sideways. There was no other way. The pressure from the Cardinal Heaven experts in the main hall was too great. If there was a place with the most experts in the world, everyone thought that there was no other place besides this place. He looked down at the 16 people below. They were the top 16 in this martial arts competition, and each of them was a talented young man. First, there was a round of encouragement, followed by a speech. It was mainly about welcoming warriors and people with talent and achievements in certain industries to immigrate to Dayo. There were various immigration incentives. This award ceremony was to be filmed and broadcasted throughout the country to reduce the negative impact that Honeysuckle's "kill that great Xia man" had on others. Following that was the award ceremony. The first place received 100 level 5 crystals, the second and third places received 50 crystals, the 4th to 8th places received 30 crystals, and the 9th to 16th places received 20 crystals. In addition, the martial arts hall was open to everyone. The top 3 could enter the second level, and the 4th to 16th places could enter the first level. The martial arts hall had collected many secret manuals from Tianjing Basin and the Yun Nation. There were also many collections provided by the Temple of Heaven and the Imperial family. There were tens of thousands of manuals, so it wasn't an exaggeration to name it after the martial arts hall. When Ren Baqian announced this news, everyone's eyes lit up. The martial arts hall had a fatal attraction to any warrior. Near the end, Ren Baqian asked in a magnanimous manner, "What other requests do you have?" Many great Xia warriors were moved. They felt that this was a reward from the prince to the aboriginal warriors. At this moment, someone stepped forward. It was Jiang Zhong, who ranked third in this year's competition. This made many great Xia warriors nervous, as they didn't know why he was so unwise. "Your Highness, there's something I don't understand. Please enlighten me." Ren Baqian chuckled and said, "Ask away. I wonder where the top 100 experts in the world are now." Many people were shocked when they heard this. This was what everyone else wanted to know, but no one dared to ask this question under the gaze of so many Cardinal Heaven experts. Furthermore, he was asking the prince of another country. Su Meijuan's heart skipped a beat. Although he had just heard the answer last night, he still wanted to hear how the other party would answer. Ren Baqian looked at the crowd meaningfully and said, "This matter isn't really a secret. All the experts are fighting against the foreign races in the south. This is their responsibility, my responsibility, the responsibility of the people of Dayo, and also your responsibility." Ren Baqian didn't say too much, but he still roughly explained it. After hearing this, everyone had a look of horror on their faces. Only Su Meijun had a bitter smile on his face. He felt that all the trouble he had gone through these days was a joke. Furthermore, what he and the others had been thinking about all this time was a joke. The so-called big secret wasn't a secret at all. Then he felt a surge of vigor in his heart. Those seniors had shed blood for the human race in the South, so how could he not cherish himself? Chapter 1194. Lu Qing looked at the city wall in front of her, her heart filled with an indescribable emotion. This was Stainless City. It had been a year and a half since she arrived at the Grey Thorn village. She could be considered to have gained a firm foothold, developing quite a few followers of God in the village. The beauty of the Void hometown and the recognition of brothers and sisters of different races filled her followers with a sense of pride. The reason she came to Stainless City this time was to develop a new group of believers. Stainless City was more than 7,000 kilometers away from the two-boundary wall. It was also the city closest to the two-boundary wall, the center of the area of several thousand kilometers, where the Stainless Goddess resided. Where are you from? What's your name? The guards at the entrance were two Nashi clansmen with long tails. When they saw Lu Qing, their eyes lit up. Their biological instinct to pursue the opposite sex made them very interested in this clansman they had never seen before. I'm from Luoyuan. Lu Qing's face carried a trace of excitement. This was the first time she had seen a clansman from the outside world. What kind of place is Luoyuan? The two guards thought for a long time, but still couldn't imagine that a Grey Thorn village that they had never placed in their eyes would actually produce a clansman. Where are you going? The two guards motioned for Lu Qing to stand to the side and not block the way into the city. They chatted with her while casually inspecting, berating, or kicking a few low-level clansmen. Lu Qing frowned slightly. We are all the people of the Old Mother. We are all brothers and sisters. This concept had long since been rooted in her heart. But she knew what was more important. From the two guards, she learned about the situation of the Nashi clansmen in Stainless City. There were thousands of Nashi clansmen in the entire city, but there were no other Nashi clansmen within 1,000 kilometers. Stainless City was dominated by the Rolling Wind clan, which was also the race of the Stainless Goddess. This clan had many clansmen, and most of them had the ability to control the wind. The biggest problem was that this clan was very dirty. When the two Nashi guards mentioned their name, their eyes were filled with disgust. Probably because there was always wind flowing around their bodies. It caused a large amount of water to be lost. Thus, this clan liked to wrap themselves in a layer of mud. And they only bathed twice in their lives, once at birth and once at death. One could imagine the smell on their bodies. Why don't you wait for a while? I'll take you to Willow Alley after your shift is over. A guard invited Lu Qing enthusiastically after hearing that she had nowhere else to go. Just like that, Lu Qing settled down in Willow Alley, which was filled with Na clan members. This process was not a smooth one. Lu Qing would occasionally mention the Ajati matriarch, and almost got into a conflict with the Snake clan. Fortunately, Renbachian had devised a set of sophistry and words. After some time, the people of the Snake clan no longer felt so repulsed by her. As long as I spend some time, I will definitely be able to develop some followers. Lu Qing clenched his fist when no one was around. In addition, she also inquired about the places where the lower races lived in the city. These lower races were the lowest existences in the city, and their lives were very difficult. Therefore, some small favors could make these lower races listen to her seriously. For example, by giving them some daily necessities and a small bag of food. Many of the sick and elderly of the lower races who did not have much labor power would listen to her talk about the Ajati matriarch every day. As time passed, there would naturally be people who would agree. As for the money to buy things, she still had a few villages to support her. Although each village was in dire straits, when added together, it was barely enough to support her activities in Stainless City. Lu Qing carefully avoided the Rolling Wind people that she occasionally encountered. It wasn't that she found it dirty, but that the Rolling Wind people had a bad temper. Unknowingly, the ground suddenly began to shake, and the tremors were getting stronger and stronger. What's happening? Lu Qing looked around blankly. There were many people like her. Many people jumped to higher ground in the city and exclaimed in surprise. "What's wrong?" Lu Qing squeezed into the crowd and looked at the man on top of the flagpole. Many people below asked loudly. "A huge beast. It's very big, twice the height of the city wall." The man on top gestured. Soon, some people who were a little further away from the city wall, but had a wide field of vision, could see that a huge head had appeared on top of the city wall. An earth spirit wearing a simple robe and a crown made of precious stones patted the giant beast's head and made it lower its head. Then he jumped down from the beast and led some earth spirits into the city through the gate. They went straight to the center of the city. Earth Spirit Clan Su requests to see the Heavenly Lord. Do you think the Heavenly Lord is someone you can see whenever you want? Come with me. The High Priest wants to see you. Not long after, Imperial Prince Su saw the so-called High Priest in a stone hall with a few holes at the top that allowed sunlight to pass through. He was tightly wrapped in cloth from head to toe, only revealing his eyes and mouth. There were also gray water droplets dripping from the cloth. Original Earth Spirit Clan, what do you want to do? When the High Priest spoke, Imperial Prince Su could even hear the howling of the wind. Violent winds swept through the stone hall. A branch of my Earth Spirit Clan has been exterminated. Su was ordered by the Black Sky God to come and kill the enemy. Imperial Prince Su said loudly. According to the Black Sky God's guidance, the enemy is in this direction. High Priest of the Rolling Wind Clan, please tell me. The High Priest's slightly turbid eyes looked at Imperial Prince Su, and he let out a laugh that sounded like a bellows. So that's how it is. Even if you didn't come, this old man would have sent people to investigate. Since that's the case, I'll let you guys deal with it yourselves. Go and kill. Where is our enemy? Imperial Prince Su's eyes lit up and he asked loudly. More than a year ago, the road mark left by the Black Sky God had lost its guidance. He had been searching in the original direction, going to many cities and places before finally arriving here. This was also the largest city in the north. There used to be a branch of the Earth Spirit Clan guarding the Black Stone Wall in the north. They were the abandoned clan that stayed here after the war to guard the other side of the wall. After a few thousand years, the abandoned clan has returned. Your clansmen must have been killed by them. Go and take revenge, go and kill. Go and destroy those abandoned clans. Abandoned clans? The branch that used to be called the human race? That's them. Now they have declined to the point where they can no longer pose a threat. However, according to the agreement from back then, if this abandoned clan appears again, they must be completely annihilated. Without those kings, they still dare to come back. They really don't know what's good for them. Let them experience the anger of the Earth Spirit Clan. The High Priest laughed. Since it was the agreement from back then, why did you let them go? Imperial Prince Su asked. Back then, other than a branch of the Earth Spirit Clan and a branch of the Thousand Bone Clan, there were still some sentries left outside the wall between the two realms. Some of them have already returned from outside the wall between the two realms. They first went to where the God of Six Gods is, then sent a message here. My Rolling Clan also just learned about it. If it's them, the Earth Spirit Clan definitely won't let them go. After Su heard about the enemy's message, he wore a cruel smile on his face and strode out of the main hall. The High Priest laughed like a bellows and then soaked himself in the pool, no longer paying attention to this matter. The Earth Spirit Clan, which had a powerful giant beast and a secret symbiosis technique, was definitely not something that the abandoned clan, who had lost their king and had stayed outside the wall between the two realms for thousands of years, could resist. In this way, he could save himself the trouble of mobilizing his troops and rations. Lu Qing didn't stay in the city for too long before he felt the same tremor again. However, this time it was far away. This direction is at Luoyuan village. Why would such a powerful giant beast go there? But the High Priest said that if there's an abnormal situation, I have to report it to him. Lu Qing thought for a moment, then returned to his room. He moved a piece of soil at the foot of his bed and took out a palm-sized metal cylinder. He first took out 3 antennas, then pressed a few buttons. Primary Priest Lu Qing? What's the matter? A woman's voice came from the other side. Lu Qing remembered that it was the officiant beside the High Priest. Today, some Earth Spirit clan members and very large giant beasts left Stainless City and headed north. The high priest said that if there's such a situation, I have to report it to him. After she finished speaking, she felt as if time had stopped for a moment. She couldn't even hear the other side's breathing. Then a slightly different voice came. You've worked hard. Do you know how many Earth Spirits there are, what kind of giant beasts, how many, and which route they took? I don't know. I'll go ask around. Someone should have seen them at the city gate. The route they took was in the direction of Luoyuan village. Then Lu Qing was a little worried. Will the gray thorns in the village be all right? They'll be fine. After saying this, the officiant encouraged him again, and hurriedly turned off the radio. First set a small target, for example, 1 second. Remember, bookseller's residence. Chapter 1195. More than 5,000 kilometers away from Stainless City, in the mountains near the Greythorn village. Lin Dong fiddled with the control panel in his hands as he watched the crow-like bird fly away in a crooked manner. On the screen above the platform, the scene that Crow was looking at was displayed. This thing is really powerful. It can even make this. Lin Dong sighed. His mind immediately came up with 100 ways to use this thing to make it easier to preach. As the leader of the Heavenly Orthodox sect, Lin Dong was very dedicated. Just like how a forensic doctor would always think about where to dissect a person. Doctors would always think about what was wrong with a person. But he heard that Prince Ren was preparing something better, specially designed for preaching. He did not know what it was. Are they coming for us? Su Jiaojia was worried, but she showed it on her face. After staying here for more than a year, she knew how powerful the foreign races were. She was no longer as optimistic as before. A smile appeared on Lin Dong's face. So what if I am? So what if we are not? We will have to fight this battle sooner or later. Even if we die here, we will just return to the Void hometown early. Leader, we believe in the Heavenly Lord. Su Jiaojia cautiously reminded. Leader, you are too immersed in your role. The Ajadi Matriarch and the Heavenly Lord are just different names. Lin Dong said nonchalantly. His eyes were fixed on the light screen, which displayed the mountain range and land below. In a flash, he flew past it. The vast fields and the villages in the distance were gradually getting bigger. If there is such a supreme existence in the world, then no matter what we call it, it will be it in the end, and it can only be it. So it doesn't matter who we believe in. Can't you see through it? Lin Dong asked. I only believe in you. Su Jiaojia's eyes were filled with affection, and her brows relaxed a lot. No, you and the others only believe in our own hearts. Each of us believes in what we want to believe. The only difference is how to package this heart. Some people package it as the Heavenly Lord, because they believe in the Heavenly Lord. Some people package it as the Ajadi Matriarch, because they believe in the Ajadi Matriarch. The me in your heart, is it really me? Lin Dong's radiance made Su Jiaojia almost unable to look at him. More than that, he doubted his own intelligence. He couldn't understand it at all. Lin Dong did not explain, and carefully looked at the scene on the screen. At the end of his vision, there was a team heading in their direction. Only 30 kilometers. This is the limit. Lin Dong softly sighed. Now he could only wait. First, he calculated the approximate distance, and the time of the other party's arrival before controlling the crow to fly back. In the evening, Lin Dong once again commanded the crow to fly out. Wow, so much better. Even though she already knew, Su Jiaojia's beautiful face still changed when she saw the huge army with her own eyes. Even Lin Dong furrowed his brows. The enemies were not overwhelming, but there were still about 30,000 of them. Most importantly, there were also an equal number of ferocious beasts. There were tigers, leopards, lions, wolves, and even more creatures that he had never seen before. All of them were huge enough to be used as mounts, and they also had powerful combat abilities. There were hundreds of flying beasts flying in the sky, and all of them were riding on earth spirits. In particular, 5 of the giant beasts had wide heads, bloody mouths, long necks, long forelimbs, and motley hind limbs. They were at least 100 meters tall, and looked like moving mountains when they walked. Lin Dong heaved a sigh of relief after a long time. He controlled the crow to fly close to the ground, so that it would not be eaten by the flying beasts in the sky. A campsite had already been set up at the border between the two worlds. The supplies from Dayo had been continuously transported here, so there was no need for the Empress and the rest to worry about logistics. There were nearly 1,000 people in the campsite. Among them, more than 100 were experts, and the rest were in charge of transportation and other logistics. The Empress sat in a stone house. It wasn't considered exquisite, but it was much better than in the cave. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, something has happened. A lady walked in quickly with a pale face. The Empress glanced at her, and didn't know what kind of news made her behave like this. However, there was another thought in her mind. Hong Xian's strength is sufficient, but she lacks experience on the battlefield. If she fights with the foreign races in this state, I'm afraid she won't survive. Tell me what's the matter. News. Chief Lin sent news that the Earth Spirit Army is attacking. Hong Xian's forehead was dripping with sweat. No matter how ignorant she was, she had heard about the strength of the foreign races from other people. Previously, they had surrounded the foreign races and bullied the weak. More than 100 spirit wheel or cardinal heaven experts besieged a few foreign experts and many ordinary foreign races. Even so, there were often casualties. Now that they heard that the foreign races were attacking, they immediately panicked. The Empress didn't say a word. She poured herself a cup of wine, drank it, and asked, "Where are they? How many people? How strong are they?" Near the village of the Grey Thorn race to the north. There are 30,000 Earthwheel experts and 30,000 ferocious beasts of varying strength. It is estimated that they will arrive in 10 days at most. If they speed up, I'm afraid that the vanguard will arrive in 5 days. 5 of the beasts are at least advanced longevity heaven experts, and the rest are unknown. Hong Xian quickly poured out the news from Lin Dong. 60,000 enemies. The Empress muttered to herself for a while. The Earth Spirit's identity reminded her of the mark on her arm. She instructed, "Get Xian Chou, Zhu Puhua, Li Fu Mahongyu, Jiang Zixi Su Gongso, and the others to discuss this matter." After a while, everyone arrived. "Take a seat." The Empress waited for everyone to sit down before she said, "Lin Dong, sect leader Lin has sent a message. About 30,000 people from the Earth Spirit tribe and 30,000 ferocious beasts have appeared in the vicinity of the Grey Thorn tribe's village. Everyone is familiar with that place. A little further north is the land of fire poison." As soon as the Empress finished speaking, everyone's expression changed. Some even stood up and subconsciously looked toward the south. Hee, who cares how many people there are? Let's *CK them up. Xian Chou grinned with a sinister look on his face. Zhu Puhua revealed her white teeth. Her whole body was surging with fighting spirit and a bloodthirsty aura. On the other hand, many great Xia experts frowned and pondered. Although there will be a battle sooner or later, they came faster than expected. Li Fu frowned. "We still need time," Jiang Zixi said. However, no one knew how much time it would take. After all, they were too few in number. "That's right, we need time," the Empress agreed. Not only did they need time, but Ren Baqian also needed time. Each of these people was a precious seed that couldn't be wasted here. Your mission is to improve your strength and grow to the point where you can play a role in a top-notch battle. Don't die at the wall of two worlds before you grow up. After speaking, the Empress looked around and said resolutely, "Give up here for now and lure them into the 60,000 mountains." The 60,000 mountains were extremely vast. As long as they were slightly off to the side, they would be able to get away from the supply routes and the aboriginals. In the meantime, they would use various methods to weaken the enemy. When they were weakened to a certain extent, they would be wiped out in one fell swoop. Not only could it reduce casualties, but it could also buy more time. In addition, find an opportunity to capture some alive, the Empress said after some thought. Ren Baqian hadn't left any alive before, but he was very interested in the method of sharing life with the Earth Spirit. Chapter 1196. They're here so soon. Ren Baqian sat in the palace, looked ahead, and was slightly distracted. It seemed that since the trip to the 60,000 mountains before the wedding, The shadows of the foreign races had been covering the sky of the human race. It had been almost 17 years since then. However, the human race was still not ready. The enemy this time wasn't considered strong. After all, it was only a middle-level race, but it wasn't weak either. In fact, it was far stronger than the current strength of the human race. However, Renbachyan wasn't too worried. As long as they were led to the 60,000 mountains, and the weak earth spirits were eliminated through various methods, the remains of the human emperor should be enough to sweep the battlefield. It was a good opportunity to test the strength of the remains of the human emperor. After all, this was the greatest trump card at present. Only by testing it would he know the upper limit of its strength. What distracted him was the descendants of this group of earth spirits. The matter of the human race had been exposed to the foreign races. When there was no news of this group of earth spirits, more foreign races would come. Fortunately, he had arranged for Lin Dong and the others. If everything went well, they should be able to buy a lot of time. In fact, it was pretty good to bring the Empress and Honeysuckle back to Earth. Life was convenient, and technology was advanced. At worst, they could migrate to the Triangulum Galaxy after a few decades. Although the Thunder Barbaric Kings were powerful, they were much easier to deal with than the gods of the foreign races. If there was enough time, he could bring a lot more people back. After thinking about this, Renbachyan came back to his senses, grinned, and extinguished this thought. Although this was the Empress's country, he had watched it grow step by step. This was where his blood and sweat were. Although the foreign races were powerful, who could say for sure that they would win until the end? Just in time to measure the strength of the foreign races and get the symbiotic technique of the earth spirits. Renbachyan looked quite calm. He wasn't excited or full of fighting spirit. This was just a small interlude. If he couldn't even beat these earth spirits, he would just go to sleep. Qing Yuan and Hong Yuan were peeking at Renbachyan's expression from a distance. They were impressed to see that he was only slightly distracted, and then calmed down as if nothing had happened. Everyone in the palace could see how hard Renbachyan had worked over the years. Ask Qinglian to come to the palace. She is the sword master of Great Xia, who is now teaching mathematics at the college, Renbachyan ordered. Yes. A moment later, he saw Qinglian, who looked much more mature than before. Unlike the Empress, who had hardly changed over the years, even without the jade embryo, the speed of her aging was still very slow. In terms of lifespan, a sword master's lifespan was similar to that of an ordinary person who had never cultivated. In fact, due to using the spirit sword too many times, their lifespan was even shorter than that of an ordinary person. I remember that you once said that there was a poisonous healer in the imperial court. His words always come true in reverse. Renbachyan asked. After conquering more than half of the territory, Su Qing's volunteer army was finally unable to advance any further. The appearance of a heaven-opening earth domain expert in the Great Xia royal family made no one dare to enter again. It was just that the expert from the Great Xia royal family was under some kind of restriction and could not travel far. Thus, the two sides reached a stalemate, and Su Qing established the Empress court. Only now did many people realize that Su Qing had many connections with the previous dynasty. The name of the Empress court also came from this. Your Highness, you must be referring to the current Marquis of Su Nation, Su Yu. Qinglian immediately knew who he was referring to. It's him. Can you invite him over? Renbachyan asked. He didn't pay much attention to the Empress court, nor did he have the energy to pay attention to the matters of the outside world. I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Su Yu is greedy, lustful, and afraid of death. He won't be willing to leave his gentle home. He will definitely not come to Dayo. Qinglian smiled when she mentioned Su Yu. Such a person actually joined the volunteer army? Renbachyan found it rather interesting. With a knife on his neck, he has to agree whether he wants to or not. If Qinglian didn't say it, few outsiders would know that the world-famous military counselor actually joined the army in this way. He has to come whether he wants to or not. It's not up to him. Make a trip yourself. I will ask the Department of Inspection to send some experts to accompany you. Get up early and set off overnight. Is there a problem ahead? In that case, Your Highness, get someone to substitute for tomorrow's class. Qing Lian didn't need to ask. Seeing how anxious Renbaqian was and thinking about Suyu's value, she immediately knew what was going on. Actually, I want you to serve in the imperial court, Renbaqian said appreciatively. Qing Lian was clever and proficient in mathematics and probability. He felt rather regretful that such a talent had to teach in a school. I can't afford to offend the officials in the imperial court. Qing Lian pursed her lips and smiled, which made Renbaqian laugh as well. Going to court every day was like fighting. Ordinary people really couldn't afford to go to court and get hurt. Go back and prepare first. I will arrange for a carriage to go with you later. Renbaqian dismissed Qing Lian and thought about the Bichi again. However, the Empress wasn't around. With its speed, not many people could catch it. If he provoked its temper, he was afraid that he would be the first to be unlucky. Hence he gave up on the idea. He only hoped that Suyu's ability would be of great use. After thinking about it, Renbaqian prepared a letter and asked Qing Lian to pass it to Su Qing, so that he could borrow the marquis from his family. This was to prevent him from thinking that he was being kidnapped. 13 days later in Yuzhou, the marquis of the Su kingdom, Suyu, was lying in his courtyard, basking in the sun. Back then he was forced to join the gang and was beaten up. After so many years he finally settled down. He had no intention of advancing further. He just wanted to bask in the sun, take care of flowers, walk his dog, go to brothels, marry concubines and abduct women. Anyway, as long as he didn't go too far, no one could do anything to him. The others wanted him to stay like this. Not only was it comfortable, but it was also safe. The housekeeper came to Suyu's side and whispered, "Marquis, someone sent a greeting card, saying that an old friend wants to see you." "Oh, an old friend?" Suyu took the greeting card casually. "Which old friend?" The person only said that she is a guest of the king's tent. Suyu was stunned. Now there was only one king in the imperial court, and that was the emperor. As for the emperor's guests, they were all in court now and would never send a greeting card like this, let alone say that she was a guest of the king's tent. Looking at the pretty girl on the greeting card, a somewhat unfamiliar face immediately appeared in front of Suyu's eyes. Suyu was puzzled at first, but this expression didn't last for more than a second. His face suddenly changed, and he jumped up from the recliner. "Where will Marquis see her?" "See what?" "Drag her away." After saying this, Suyu didn't even change his clothes and ran to the back door as if his buttocks were on fire. "Ask Mr. Wu and Mr. Lu to come quickly. It's nothing good. We can't afford to offend them. We'd better hide quickly." "Marquis, where are you going in such a hurry?" Mr. Wu looked like a scholar in his 50s, while Mr. Lu was an old man. Both of them were at the earthwill level. When Suyu reached the back door, they had already caught up. "Don't ask too much. Follow me." Suyu looked nervous. The two of them were a little suspicious. What was wrong with the usually unshakable Marquis today? It looked like he had encountered a formidable enemy. But this was the Marquis's residence. How could there be a formidable enemy? "Marquis, where are you going in such a hurry?" Suyu, who had just pushed open the back door, heard this again. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, "I told you not to." Then he suddenly shivered. This woman's voice was vaguely familiar, but it definitely wasn't the voice of the mansion. He could even hear the voices of the 38 concubines in the mansion with his ears closed. He turned his head and saw a woman with a wide forehead, a slightly big mouth, and glasses standing not far away, looking at him with an amused smile. "I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect you to run away as soon as you saw my visiting card. Do you hate me so much?" "Miss Qing, I haven't seen you for a long time, but I have something urgent to do." Suyu's forehead immediately dripped with sweat. He wasn't afraid of Qing Lian, but Qing Lian, who had been away from the imperial court for 10 years, was definitely up to no good. Moreover, Qing Lian was a spirit will sword master. If they met, it would be difficult for him to reject her. Therefore he couldn't meet her. He didn't expect her to run away. "No matter how anxious you are, it won't last long." Qing Lian chuckled. "Marquis, why don't you let me finish? Can I not listen?" "No." Qing Lian's face was stiff. "How dare you? Who are you? Mr. Wu and Mr. Lu didn't sense any martial aura from Qing Lian. If they didn't show off now, when would they? Although she and Marquis seemed to be old friends, they couldn't miss this opportunity. Then, a tall figure suddenly appeared above their heads. "Don't kill them," Qing Lian said unhurriedly just before the big hands pressed on their heads. The two escaped with their lives, but they couldn't escape the fate of being pressed to the ground. As for Su Yu, he knew from the beginning that the two of them were no match for Qing Lian. He also knew the huge difference between a spirit wheel and an earth wheel. He even gave up the idea of escaping, and stood there with a conflicted face. After a while he said in despair, "Speak. Her Highness invites you to come with her." Qing Lian approached him step by step, as if stepping on his heart. This time, Su Yu really had no desire to live. "Do I have a choice? No. I'm a dignified marquis. Her Highness left a letter for the previous king. If you don't want to cause any chaos, I can give you 15 minutes to arrange it." This time, Su Yu's face was not only lifeless, but also deathly pale. "Are you leaving a will for her? Marquis, you are thinking too much. Do I need to go through so much trouble to kill you? How long will she be back? I don't know. If you are willing, you can also move your family there." Qing Lian chuckled. These were Renbaqian's original words. After all, this person was very useful, and they didn't know how long he would need to stay there. "I have 38 concubines. If I don't return, I'm afraid they won't end up well. Should I bring them along?" Su Yu asked tentatively. Qing Lian looked at Su Yu, who was like a moving mountain of flesh, and suddenly wanted to beat him up. After another half a month, Renbaqian finally saw Su Yu, who was like a mountain of flesh. When he found out that Su Yu had more than 30 concubines behind him, Renbaqian couldn't help but feel a little envious. Cough. It was contempt. "This is Her Highness." Su Yu's face was full of flattery. "Marquis Su, I had no choice but to invite you here this time. Please forgive me if I offended you." Although Renbaqian was envious, despicable, disdainful, he was still polite. "Did Qing Lian tell you on the way here?" Renbaqian asked with a smile. "She didn't say anything. She just said that I'm useful." Renbaqian nodded. "Let me tell you then." He then explained the general situation to Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes widened. "This matter is a bit big. Why haven't you heard about it?" Su Yu was horrified. "It's a big matter, and ordinary people won't benefit from knowing about it. Instead, it will cause panic." Renbaqian waved his hand. Even if it was Great Xia in the imperial court, as long as they didn't drag him down, he couldn't be bothered with them. "But I'm afraid that I'll betray Her Highness's trust in such a big matter." Su Yu looked conflicted. "There's no other way. The foreign races are powerful and the human race is weak. As long as there's a slight chance, we have to try. Under the heavens and on the earth, the human race has to face such difficulties. If we can defeat the foreign races, of course everything will be fine. If not, the human race will be removed from the world. Therefore, everyone with the ability has to participate. Even the ruffians are fighting outside the wall of the two worlds, let alone people like us who live in the imperial court and enjoy the worship of the people." Renbaqian's words were resolute and decisive. Su Yu opened his mouth but couldn't say anything else. Su Yu thought about it carefully and couldn't help but admire Renbaqian. Dayo had been preparing silently for so many years, and the aboriginals had been guarding the south for so many years to fight the foreign races with all their might. Unlike the battle between the imperial court and Great Xia, this was a battle that truly carried the fate of the human race. A marquis like him didn't even know about it. "Forget it. I'll sell these few hundred kilograms of meat to Her Highness." Su Yu's small eyes were shining at this time. He didn't look like the cowardly and ingratiating person anymore. He was no longer the Marquis Su who was waiting to die in the Marquis's residence. This sentence was addressed as Her Highness, and not Her Highness of Dayo. From Renbaqian's description, he had already figured it out. After this battle, there would probably be more battles, and he might not be able to return for a while. If Dayo was defeated, it would be useless to return. If Dayo won, there would be no point in returning. Of course, the premise was that what Renbaqian said was true. However, even though this matter was shocking, He believed that Rinpoche didn't come all the way here just to tease him. Suyu could become the military advisor of the volunteer army, not only because he was a top-notch toxic healer. At this moment, he was very decisive and had sharp eyes. Rinpoche laughed and said, "In that case, I'll have to trouble Marquis Su. First, I'll have to trouble you to be an advisor. After the war, I'll reward you according to your contributions. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second. Chapter 1197. Time before Qing Lian found Suyu. The Wall of the Two Worlds. The Empress was sitting high above the Wall of the Two Worlds. The strong wind blew her hair on her face and caused her red dress to flutter in the air. Below them was the outpost that was already empty. All the equipment and resources had been moved away and buried. Rinpoche didn't know if they could hide from the strange beasts, but they wouldn't be able to use them even if they found out. Within the Wall of the Two Worlds, there were two rather obvious paths. One of them was already there, and had been created over the years. The other one was a very obvious false path when they retreated. In addition, there was a rather hidden path along which all the people retreated. Of course, this path was also a smokescreen. Or rather, it was the path that the enemy wanted to take. The Empress fiddled with the screen in front of her, and saw a black line in the distance. The shrill cry of a bird came from the sky. "They're coming." The Empress looked up and could already see a few small dots in the sky. She grabbed the bone bough beside her, flipped over, stood up, and knocked an arrow. The air was cut in front of the Empress. There was a ripping sound that sounded like a piece of cloth being torn apart. Then there was another sound. The black dots dancing in the sky in the distance exploded into clouds of blood. The Empress shot 16 arrows in a row and shot down all the enemies within her line of sight. However, that was all. After observing for a while, the enemy didn't seem to have any reaction. No flying mounts continued to rise into the sky, and no one left the team to speed up. "Are they looking down on us?" The Empress thought as she drank a mouthful of wine from the bottle. "Tun tun tun. Huh." The Empress let out a long breath. Soon the dots at the edge of her line of sight became bigger and bigger, and the ground trembled every moment. This continued until the Empress saw the 5 terrifying giant beasts that were 100 meters tall. They are indeed big guys. The energy reaction is 200,000? The Empress wore an energy detector on one of her eyes. "It's a little scary," the Empress thought to herself. However, the other party definitely wasn't that strong. Otherwise, the Earth Spirit wouldn't be a mid-tier race. It should have something to do with their huge bodies. The energy inside such a huge body isn't something that a human body can compare with. They definitely aren't fast, the Empress continued to speculate. That was good news. Their speed was not fast, which meant that they would not be able to escape when the nuclear bomb exploded. These guys with the greatest energy reaction and the greatest destructive power were actually the easiest to deal with. I don't know if there are any outsiders who share the same life as these big guys. If there are, they must be important people. If we blow them up like this, we might even get a buy one get one free. After all, this kind of giant beast's life force must be extremely strong. If an Earth spirit shared its life with this kind of giant beast, it would almost be an unkillable monster. Half a day later, the Earth Spirit Clan's army finally arrived 2 miles away from the Wall of Two Boundaries. Imperial Prince Su looked at the completely empty camp in front of him, and then raised his head to look at the red shadow at the top of the wall between the two realms. Human race. Imperial Prince Su's voice rumbled through the sky like thunder. Hairy monster. The Water Empress looked down at the Earth Spirit Clan and replied. Were you the ones who killed our clansmen? Imperial Prince Su asked loudly. The original hairy monster's here? I killed him, that's right. The Empress replied coldly. The corners of Imperial Prince Su's mouth twitched as he revealed a bloodthirsty smile. Although he didn't expect the other party to answer, he was quite happy that she said it so frankly. I will destroy your country, kill your clansmen, turn your cities into ruins, and turn the land into barren land. The people of the Black Sky God are not to be blasphemed. Imperial Prince Su looked at the Empress with bloodthirsty eyes. Come, I'll be waiting. The purple lines on the Empress's face grew and receded several times. She suppressed the desire to fight in her heart, picked up a black box by her feet, and threw it with all her might. It shot behind the other party like a sharp arrow. Her other hand had already calmly picked up the remote control. 200,000 tons as a greeting gift, the Empress said softly. What is this? A letter of challenge? Imperial Prince Su looked at the Empress's actions and laughed. Then, at the same time that the giant beast under him suddenly roared, his expression changed, and he suddenly jumped back. There were a few people who did the same thing as Imperial Prince Su, but more people didn't react in time. Boom! A fireball appeared out of nowhere and quickly expanded, as if there was a second sun hanging in the sky. Some of the earth spirit people and strange beasts nearby didn't even have time to scream before they turned into ashes. Imperial Prince Su only felt a sharp pain in his eyes, and he screamed in the air. The huge fireball almost turned his clothes into ashes, and his body was directly blown away by the shockwave. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. This was the first time that the foreign races had seen the power of technology. Roars and roars sounded one after another. However, the earth spirit people were in a straight line, and their strange beasts were large in size. Not many people were affected in the core area, less than 1,000 people. Nearly half of them died on the spot, and nearly half were seriously injured. Damn the human race. I want to kill her. I want to exterminate the human race. Imperial Prince Su crouched on the ground and let out a mournful roar. He originally came with a heart full of fighting spirit and wanted to kill the enemy who hurt his clansmen. When he knew that he was facing the human race, he thought that it would be an easy battle. However, he didn't expect that he would suffer a big loss as soon as they met. However, the sharp pain in his body reminded him that the other party wasn't as easy to deal with as he thought. Inform the rear team to stop advancing. Everyone be careful, retreat slowly and control your mounts. Don't panic. Imperial Prince Su's skin was almost burnt black, but after a while the burnt pieces fell off, and the flesh inside could be seen growing quickly. A few hours later, the dust settled and the situation at the scene was completely analyzed. Most of the casualties were Imperial Prince Su's personal guards. Although they were quite strong, they didn't have time to escape. Almost all of Imperial Prince Su's personal guards were dead or injured. Just this point alone made the flames of anger in his heart almost burst out. As for the huge giant calamity beasts, 3 were seriously injured, and 2 were lightly injured. It had to be said that the giant calamity beasts had a strong life force. Even though almost all 5 of them were in the core area, with their tough skin and strong life force, none of them died. It was terrifying. However, the one with the most serious injuries was almost burnt to a crisp, and its internal organs and bones were also greatly damaged. It needed a period of time to recover. The other 2 were temporarily unable to move due to their heavy injuries. As for the red shadow above, it had disappeared a long time ago. Your Highness, should we chase after them now? All of the earth spirits were filled with anger and wanted to slaughter the human race right now. Have the flying mounts expand the search area, rest for a night, and set off tomorrow. Imperial Prince Su opened his eyes and gritted his teeth. Right now he felt that everything he looked at was illusory. That woman should be the strongest person in the human race. I don't believe that she can use such a powerful technique in a short period of time. We must catch her, send her to the altar, and let her suffer endless pain. Chapter 1198. My lord, there are 3 routes. Judging from the smell, they took the more concealed route. However, the other 2 routes have been destroyed, and I suspect that the humans came through these 2 routes. After all, that small path can't carry too many people and can't transport supplies. The earth spirit's mount was a pangolin-like creature with an extremely sensitive sense of smell. If the aboriginals hadn't destroyed the original route in advance and used some tricks, the route would have been confirmed by now. Where did that woman come from? The Sage King asked angrily. Although he wasn't dead, he was in a miserable state. A large amount of hair had fallen off, his body was festering, and he was vomiting blood. This was a constant challenge to his nerves. It's that concealed route. The rest of you will split into two and follow those two routes. If one of them is fake, then the distance won't be too far. After confirming the authenticity, we will move forward together. Also, transfer 100 flying soldiers and 2,000 light elite soldiers to follow me. King Xian said angrily. My lord. There's no need to say more. It's just a woman. Even if she has helpers, the combat power of the abandoned races is far inferior to ours, King Xian said coldly. He tapped his chest lightly with his thick finger, and there was another twitching pain. Most of his chest was festering, and it kept collapsing and growing. Their shared life force caused them to suffer more pain when they were exposed to the nuclear radiation. However, this was only temporary. After one night, King Xian estimated that it would take a week for his injuries to recover. Oh, have they split up? The Empress sneered as she looked at the image on the screen. Although the people had been evacuated, they still made a lot of preparations in that area. In particular, some of the microsurveillance equipment was very difficult to detect. However, the disadvantage was that the signal couldn't be transmitted far. Fortunately, the hidden signal relay equipment hadn't been discovered yet. Even if it was discovered, it didn't matter. As they moved forward, there were other relay equipment ahead. How long until the landmines arrive? The Empress asked through the radio. The first batch has arrived at Qing Valley. It is estimated that it will take about 3 months to reach the designated location. How are the enemies? How was the effect of the nuclear bomb yesterday? 3 of the giant beasts were seriously injured and are recuperating at the Wall of Two Worlds. We need a larger yield. A 200,000-ton yield should be enough to kill them. As for the enemy leader, he's very sensitive to danger. He's only injured but not dead, so he's still with the army. Besides, it won't be so easy next time. It doesn't matter. We threw it this time. Next time, we can bury it in the soil and put it in the water. Renbaqian chuckled. It wasn't easy to throw a nuclear bomb in front of the other party, but it was too easy to place it in the path that the other party had to take. Let's lure them deeper and buy as much time as possible. I will have them set of traps and kill of the earth of the earth. Earth. Well, I will allocate a batch of 4th grade and 3rd grade crystals to your majesty. The following days will depend on your majesty, Renbaqian said. He felt a little helpless because he couldn't help much with this kind of matter. Even the origin crystals were the only batch left. Renbaqian said, I will send a batch of 4th grade and 3rd grade crystals to your majesty. The next few days will depend on you. Seeing Renbaqian's expression, the Empress said in a relaxed tone, Don't worry. It's just an earth spirit. The earth spirit didn't pose too much pressure to her. Even if she wasn't as strong as them, it wouldn't be a problem for her to leave. Moreover, there was the remains of the human emperor. The black sky god and the heavenly masters behind the earth spirit were the real targets. Both sides communicated for a while, informed each other of the situation, and cut off communication. The Empress walked into the belly of the mountain and looked at the dozens of people hiding there. These people were big shots among the human race, but they could only hide here. Being weaker than others really made people feel helpless and resentful. She opened a map that included nearly a quarter of the 60,000 mountains, which was also the result of many years of exploration. Next, you will head here. Your destination is the Gem Lake, the Redwood Valley, and the Burial Mountain. You need to make it look like you are going to stay there and pass through them. However, be careful because these 3 places are very dangerous. The strength of the ferocious beasts in the 60,000 mountains is at most a cardinal heaven expert. However, some areas created by heaven and earth are completely dead compared to the strength of the creatures here. Even Li Fu would be in danger if he accidentally entered. The Empress drew a zigzag line and then drew circles on 3 locations. Bring Roar with you. When you reach these 3 areas, you can use it to dig a hole and leave. Outside of these areas, you still have to evacuate normally and don't deliberately leave any clues for them. They will catch up. Roar was the Roar Emperor, but the Empress felt that its wretched appearance wasn't worthy of the word Emperor. Your Majesty, then you. The Empress waved her hand and said, I will keep a distance and watch them. With my speed, they won't be able to catch me. Don't say silly things like staying behind to accompany me. If anything happens, all of you will be a burden. The Empress's words made Hong Xian's face turn red. Study the map again and set off in a while. You found me? After everyone left, the Empress stood on top of a big tree. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly, revealing a cold smile. She drew an arrow and put it on the bow. The air parted like water. In the distance, a two-headed dove exploded into a rain of blood. Following which, the Empress shot down 2 more flying beasts that were within range before she left unhurriedly. She was dressed in red and looked like a fiery red elf in the mountains. After that, the Earth Spirit finally arrived. Damn it, bastard. King Xian vented his anger and punched the air. A tall tree in front of him, which required 3 people to wrap their arms around, exploded into countless pieces. Chase. After chasing for 3 days, the anger in the Sage King's heart burned even brighter. He clearly knew that the other party was there, but she was like a shadow that he couldn't even touch or see. Instead, the flying mounts that he sent out to search for her suffered more than 10 casualties. How does she know our movements so well? Even the experts that we secretly sent out were all evaded by her. King Xian was still puzzled. If this goes on, she will always lead us by the nose. It's better to meet up with the army and go straight to the human nest, so that she can't escape. The Empress sat on a branch and looked at the image in front of her. The army of the Earth Spirit began to stop and she began to think. They want to retreat so soon? This is even faster than expected. This enemy general was first angered and divided his troops. In just a few days he has become hesitant. It looks like he is a hot-tempered and rash person, but he is also indecisive. We need to add some fire. Chapter 1199. What has Erhua been doing recently? Drinking again? Don't you care? The Empress looked at the screen that was divided into 8 segments while talking to Rinpochian about the radio station. Countless people were tuning in to the Empress's channel. You care if you can do it? Rinpochian spread his hands on the other end of the radio station. You should do it if you can, right? Everyone was reasonable. Then he felt that the air was a little cold. There seemed to be the sound of a breastfeeding creature grinding its teeth. Don't ask how he knew, it was metaphysics. Ahem, Erhua won't drink too much anyway. Rinpochian laughed it off. At most, it would just be a little too much. The main thing was that it was getting harder and harder to capture Erhua. Currently, only Lin Xiaola, Xianja, and the old lady in Qingxin Palace Hall who coughed so much that she almost vomited out her heart and lungs were at the cardinal heaven level. The former was addicted to sleeping, while Xianja was addicted to electric shocks. It was better to let the old lady in Qingxin Palace Hall enjoy her old age. But it's not a big deal. Erhua is quite popular among the people now. Rinpochian said after some thought. Erhua often appeared on the streets, and was the easiest member of the royal family for ordinary people to see. Of course, there were only 3 members of the royal family, excluding the 2 emperors who had disappeared and his brother-in-law who had also gone missing. In addition, Erhua was straightforward and chivalrous, so he had a good reputation among the people. Forget it. The Empress rubbed her forehead. She couldn't care less and sometimes felt helpless. However, no matter how she looked at it, Erhua was a small matter. They are here. The Empress glanced at the movement on the screen and smiled. Be careful, Rinpochian warned. I know, but we have to give them some hope. We have to pay more attention to the other side. The Empress ended the call and looked at a group of about 500 Earth spirits leaving the campsite on the screen. She deliberately left some traces so that the birds in the distance could see where they were landing and acted as if they hadn't noticed them. As expected, the other side took action. Unfortunately, it's not time yet. The Empress felt a little regretful. Ever since she was born, she had never lost. She hated losing. She packed her things in her bag, only left a single chip energy detector on her left eye, and closed her eyes to rest. 6 hours later, it should be about time. The Empress listened attentively. After a while, she suddenly heard a faint sound. It sounded like a small nocturnal animal crawling through the grass. Here it comes. The Empress suppressed her desire to fight and continued to listen. After a while, she suddenly drew her bow and shot an arrow at the entrance of the cave. He burst out of the cave in an instant. Kill her. A figure shot toward the Empress like a cannonball, clearly intending to knock her back. Just as the Empress approached, she could already feel the sharpness of a sharp blade. It was as if the person who had collided with her wasn't a person, but a saber, a spear, or a sharp blade. Suddenly, a purple glow flashed on her face, and purplish-red veins covered her entire face, making her fair face look somewhat mysterious and wild. At the same time, a tall silhouette appeared behind the Empress. However, the silhouette was very faint, and one couldn't see its appearance clearly. They could only tell that it was a person. His fists were like guns and cannons as they smashed into the man's body. The man exploded into countless bloody foams in midair, but more figures pounced on him. The Empress rushed out of the cave, stepping on blood and flesh, and felt a huge threat falling from the sky. A huge palm that occupied a radius of more than 10 meters pressed down from the sky. Boom. The entire entrance of the cave was flattened by this palm. The Empress's hair was slightly disheveled. She looked up and saw a greenish-black arm extending from the void behind the palm. Black Sky God? Is there really a god? This thought emerged in the Empress's mind. Her body didn't stop moving, and she continuously kicked her surroundings, causing bloody foams to explode around her. Humph, you call yourself a god? The Empress didn't hide her contempt. The power of the other party's palm was astonishing, and it seemed to have wiped out half of the mountain with just a casual swipe. However, what surprised the Empress even more was that the other party attacked from the void. Otherwise, in terms of power, it wouldn't even be comparable to a nuclear bomb. If this was a god, then the humans on Earth could have called themselves gods long ago. You are courting death. A deafening roar came from not far away. The earth was shaking. The Sage King was running on the ground, and the ground undulated like water. An angry voice came from the void. Boom. The Empress collided with the Sage King, who was running wildly. The Empress flew backward, spat out a mouthful of blood, and then disappeared into the night. The Sage King's arms exploded, but his flesh kept wriggling, and after a while a new pair of arms grew out. For insulting the gods, I will definitely exterminate all of you humans. I will grant you the most painful death to appease the anger of the Black Sky God. Ha! In the night, the Empress flipped in the air, stepped on the air, and leaped a few hundred meters away. She only sneered when she heard the angry roar behind her. Enough acting. The Empress shook her hands, felt her chest churn, and spat out another mouthful of blood. Luring the other party over was the original plan, and getting injured was also part of the plan. Originally, she only wanted to deliberately get injured so that the other party would pursue her relentlessly. However, it seemed that the effect was better than expected. The only thing that puzzled her was what exactly was the Black Sky God. She had seen it very clearly. It was as if a hole had been torn open in the air, and an arm had stretched out from it. Interesting. If I catch one, that guy will definitely like it. Can I cut it into pieces? The Empress spat out a mouthful of blood and felt much better. The leader of the Earth Spirit clan wasn't very strong. He was only slightly stronger than the Empress. At most, he was at the peak of longevity heaven, and his fighting ability was even worse. The Empress was full of contempt for the fighting ability of the Earth Spirit clan. Even the people from Great Xia were far stronger than them in terms of fighting ability. This was the difference in fighting skills. Compared to the warriors, the Earth Spirit clan were like boorish men who only knew how to wave their fists. However, the Earth Spirit clan was rather annoying, and that was that they were very difficult to kill. Even if they were beaten to a pulp, they could regrow in a short while. Especially with such a high status, it was even more difficult to kill an Earth Spirit clan member under layers of protection. After dropping a few surveillance cameras along the way and resting for only 6 hours, the Empress found traces of the Earth Spirit clan from the surveillance cameras. They caught up quickly. The Empress was quite pleased. Her hard work wasn't in vain. In the next 3 days, the Empress fought with the Earth Spirit clan twice more. Each time, she escaped with injuries, and it seemed that her injuries were getting worse. Among the people from the Earth Spirit clan who chased after her, a total of 32 were at the longevity heaven level. Each of them had the ability to share the vitality of a ferocious beast. Even if they were smashed into pulp, they could still be resurrected in a short period of time. However, the Empress wasn't in a hurry. Very soon, she would arrive at the first burial ground prepared for the Earth Spirit clan. Set a small target first, for example, 1 second. Remember, book house. Chapter 1200. The Gemstone Lake was half a month's journey away from the Wall of Two Realms. But the Earth Spirit and the Empress took 8 days to get there. The lake was just like its name. It was like a sapphire embedded in the green earth. Within 100 miles of the lake, there was endless green grass. Countless creatures lived there. She went around from the side. She's at most half a day's journey away from us. This lake covers an area of 100,000 acres. It should be enough for everyone to eat a few meals. There aren't any powerful creatures around, an Earth Spirit reported. Okay, let's rest here. 2,000 Earth Spirits and their mounts passed through the grass. They soon alerted the owner of this place. The Yong. It was a creature with a mouth full of fangs. It had a slender body and short brown fur. It looked like a gopher. Tisk, these little things are fierce. They aren't even enough to fill the space between my teeth. The Earth Spirits looked at the ferocious Yong that stood up from the bushes. It was less than half a meter tall, but it was baring its fangs. After all, most creatures like beautiful environments. The Gemstone Lake and its surroundings were like that. They felt relaxed to have a place like this to rest while they were chasing their enemies. After a while, some of the Yong around them were eaten by the beasts. After all, the scattered Yong in front of 2,000 beasts were like elementary school students facing 2,000 fully armed soldiers. They were weak and powerless. No one thought much of it. 10 minutes later, there seemed to be more of those little things. An Earth Spirit said with a smile. These little things move in groups. It looks like there are many of them around here. But that's good. We don't have to find food for them. Many of the Earth Spirit warriors were delighted to see such a scene. 1,000 of them around. Just enough to fill the space between their teeth. 10,000 of them around. Almost enough to fill their stomachs. 50,000 of them around. Finally, they could have a good meal. This meal could last them for 3 days. 100,000 of them around. 500,000 of them around. Their field of vision was filled with earthy yellow Yong standing on its hind legs. The faces of the Earth Spirits darkened. Let's go. It was too late to leave now. Within his field of vision, those little yellow things looked as if they were growing out of the soil, densely packed everywhere. The air reeked of unease. As it turned out, although these little things did not grow out of the soil, they had drilled out of the soil. The Gemstone Lake was their hunting ground. The large number of fish in the lake allowed these Yong to reproduce without restraint, and they firmly guarded this area. What would 1,000,000 Yong beasts look like? How did it feel to face 1,000,000 vindictive, iron-headed, and ferocious men? Even the Sage King felt his scalp go numb. Following the mournful cries, the earth seemed to surge with earthy yellow waves. Countless Yong beasts, also known as Yong beasts, pounced on the Earth Spirits fearlessly. Charge out! A ferocious beast slapped a beast to death and bit another, but very quickly, a second and third beast bit its body. As long as it was bitten, it would not let go. One of the beasts let out a blood-curdling screech as its entire lower abdomen was cut open, and its intestines and organs were all pulled out. These little things were a little cute when they were quiet, but when they erupted with astonishing lethality and extremely sinister fighting style, specialized in the bottom 3. Moreover, a considerable proportion of these Yong beasts were at the Kismet heaven level, and there were even cardinal heaven level Yong beasts. 2 giant disastrous beasts were running and leaping, and almost every time they landed, they would trample a group of Yong beasts to death. Even though their bodies were covered with these yellow little things, their teeth and claws could do nothing to the Yong beasts, and a path was made in the earthy yellow sea. However, the other Earth Spirits were not so lucky. From time to time, some Earth Spirits were drowned by this yellow sea. There was even a cardinal heaven-level giant ape that had its anus burst, and its intestines were directly pulled out from its anus. The scene was extremely cruel. Damn it. The Sage King cursed angrily. He pounced and punched the surroundings, as if a cannonball had landed on the ground, creating many deep pits. Countless young beasts were turned into mincemeat. However, the young beasts did not have the slightest bit of fear, and more fearlessly pounced forward. The Empress sat in the underground cave and watched the scene of the war erupting on the screen. She was watching with great interest. A few winged cavalry warriors had set up camp at this gemstone lake in the past. When she was preparing to retreat, she had thought of this, and now it was indeed effective. Even though most of the young beasts were four-way heaven level, with a small number of Kismet heaven and cardinal heaven level beasts, as long as there were enough of them, they could cause great trouble for the other party. In particular, the young beasts were not afraid of death. Their fur could absorb force, they were fast, and they specialized in attacking their lower abdomens. Their combat strength was far beyond their level. If there were enough of them, they would be even more difficult to deal with. Even the Empress was not willing to provoke them. The Empress smiled and took out a bottle of wine that was wrapped in several layers of cloth from her bag. Now that the scene was clear, it was time for a bottle of erguotu. She thought about it and stuffed it back. This was the last bottle. It would be good if there was a fourth-dimensional pocket, the Empress suddenly thought. Even if there wasn't a fourth-dimensional pocket, it would be fine if there was a door to anything. The Empress twirled a handful of hair and used the corner of her eye to observe the battle on the screen. She carefully counted her hair. 121212, an odd number. Even if I keep it, I won't be able to grow erguotu. I won't drink more than half a bottle. The Empress happily held the bottle in her arms. There was nothing more delightful than watching from the sidelines while the enemy fought a bloody battle and suffered heavy casualties. If there was, it would be 2 bottles of erguotu. The battle didn't last long. After about 2 hours, the young beasts had chased them for more than 15 kilometers. The Empress took this opportunity to leave. She made a detour and headed in the direction of the Earth Spirits. In just 2 hours, the 2,000 Earth Spirits had lost at least 800, which was equivalent to 40% of their strength. Nearly 20% of the remaining Earth Spirits had lost their mounts. This was the result of the giant disaster beasts opening the way. These young beasts gave the Earth Spirits from afar a big surprise. Damn bastards! King Xian looked at the many Earth Spirits behind him, and his face was twisted. He didn't expect to be chased here. In fact, if it weren't for these Earth Spirits, just 2 of the giant disaster beasts would have been enough to flatten the entire area. Useless. King Xian panted and scolded. Then he ordered, "Everyone take a rest and recuperate." However, just as he finished speaking, an arrow pierced through space and blew up his head. "Find that woman." The Earth Spirits, who had just taken a breather, suddenly shouted. They had suffered such a great loss because they were chasing after her. However, just as they were out of danger, that woman appeared again. The flesh on King Xian's shoulder wriggled and returned to normal in no time. His body didn't move, and the exploded flesh and blood fell to the ground. Then, another arrow appeared in front of him and blew up his head for the second time. Go after her. King Xian, who had recovered, looked ferocious. The veins on his body were twitching. "I want to kill her, kill her." Ah! Chapter 1201. My attitude in admitting my mistake is very sincere. From March onwards, the updates became unstable. However, at the very least, I would be able to replenish 100,000 words by the end of every month. Ever since I was sealed and released, a string in my heart seemed to have broken. My condition had deteriorated severely. Other than writing the beginning of the anticipated new book, I didn't continue writing. The updates of the Empress's novel were also extremely unstable. Especially recently, I have been in a state of wondering who I am, where I am, and what I am doing every day. Last night, I wrote more than 500 words. In the morning, I was still wondering what exactly I was writing. My mind was blank. Currently, the Empress was finishing up the novel. Her original plan was to finish it by the end of this month. However, it seemed impossible now. She would strive to gradually resume updating the novel and finish it by the end of next month. Apologies for the recent updates of the gigolo of the Empress's family. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1202. Although I rarely communicate with everyone in the book review section or other places, I've always been very grateful for everyone's support. I'm just as worried as you are about whether this book will end badly or not. To be honest, I don't have the experience of finishing this book, and it will be very difficult to deal with the later stages. This is the truth. The original plan for this book was to be less than 3 million words, and the plot was to defeat the 10,000 races. As early as 2 or 3 months ago, I started preparing to wrap things up. However, it was still quite difficult for me to wrap things up. As for the war with the 6 races, how many readers would be willing to read a war plot that was hundreds of thousands of words long? Including me, most readers wouldn't like a war plot that was hundreds of thousands of words long. That's why I didn't intend to drag out the war plot too long from the very beginning. As for when I'll finish this book, I'll decide whether or not to extend it based on the progress of the plot and the updates in the next 2 months. I definitely won't rush to finish this book by the end of next month based on the current update speed. Just now, I seriously considered deleting the new book that had already been submitted for review, and I'll release it next month based on the situation of this book. In the end, I discovered that I couldn't delete it. If I release it, then so be it. Fortunately, there were still some drafts for the new book. The new book didn't have much to do with the update status of this book. They were all written before the middle of last month, and they hadn't been touched for a long time. As for this book, I'll do my best to give everyone an explanation. Chapter 1203. In the following days, if one looked at the Earth Spirit from a third party's point of view, it was easy to see that the Earth Spirit hesitated when advancing or retreating. It should be said that the Xian King hesitated. Just like the Empress thought, the Xian King was irritable and indecisive. He was often so angry that he wanted to fight for his life, but he regretted it after calming down, and wanted to retreat from time to time. Then, at this moment, the Empress jumped out like a gangster who was setting up a trap. She acted like she was saying, "Come on, come and chase me." She was injured and vomited blood. She put in a lot of effort. Then, the Xian King rushed up excitedly, and found that he was hit in the face with a stick. Their brains aren't that good either. How did they manage to drive all of you to this place in the first place? Sometimes, the Empress would speak to the air with a teasing tone. Of course, this was just a small song to kill time. The human race wasn't facing the Earth Spirit, which was only a middle-level race. To be honest, some of the Earth Spirit's abilities were very powerful, such as taming beasts and sharing lives. If the human race had this unique ability, who would dare to say that they were a middle-level race? However, it was precisely because the human race had nothing and struggled to survive that they were able to rise from a low-level race to a middle-level race. This could be considered as having a disadvantage for every advantage. 1 month later, the Earth Spirit lost more than half of its people in the Red Jade Valley. The Xian King finally understood that in this strange area, they were led by the nose by a strange opponent. Even if they were all wiped out, they couldn't do anything to that extremely fast human woman. The remaining people finally began to retreat. No matter how the Empress performed, the opponent didn't move at all. The Empress stood on the top of the mountain and watched them go back the way they came. She didn't feel any sense of victory. Compared to the total number and strength of the foreign races, these enemies were nothing. The Empress connected the radio and said, "Don't do anything over there. The enemy is going back." Thousands of miles away, dozens of people were scattered in a forest. Ma Hongyu gestured to them. Standing at the top of a tree, they could see the gap in the wall of 2 worlds in the distance, and the few Earth Spirits who stayed there. "Have you decided to let them go?" Ma Hongyu asked. The reason why Ma Hongyu asked this was that she had 2 ideas on how to deal with the Earth Spirit this time. One of them was to use all kinds of weapons and methods to exterminate the Earth Spirit tribe in the 60,000 mountains. This way, the losses would be minimal, but the downside was that once the outsiders realized this, they would most likely attack en masse. The other way was to weaken the earth spirits with many methods first, and then use weapons, spears, and flesh to resist the earth spirits' attacks. They would pretend to be able to repel the earth spirits with great difficulty, and they would pretend to be weak. That way the outsiders would look down on the human race. Even if they attacked again, it wouldn't be to the point where the human race couldn't handle them. The price was a large number of casualties. The Empress had always been against the second method, but it seemed like she had changed her mind. The Empress's eyes flickered, and she replied in a cold voice, "I've decided. We need more time." "Okay, we'll go around it." Ma Hongyu turned off the radio and let out a long sigh. With a gloomy look on her face, the Empress took out the remaining half a bottle of erguotu and poured it into her mouth. He let out a breath, wiped his mouth, sniffed the wine bottle, and followed the Sage King. It was hard to watch the enemy leave, and be prepared to send their own people to their deaths. Which bastard said that the merciful should not command an army? I'll kill him first. I'm requesting to go to the front. Even if I have to sacrifice my body, I can't let your majesty get hurt. Although I've always disliked this old man, I still agree with him. Since I'm here, how can I let your majesty take the risk alone? Great Xia says that a gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall, but an emperor shouldn't put himself in danger. Ren Baqian looked at Qin Chuan and Tong Jingye before asking seriously, "Was this written by Tong Lan? How many days did she memorize it?" "Prince, are you looking down on me? One night is enough." Tong Jingye looked proud, but Ren Baqian didn't know why he was so proud. "You'll be a burden even if you go. You'll be sending blood." Ren Baqian waved his hand. "Moreover, the danger has passed, and the earth spirits are heading back. Even so, I'm requesting to go. As the Minister of War, I can't hide in the back when the two armies are at war." Qin Chuan shouted loudly. "Old bastard is right." Tong Jingye praised him and changed the way he addressed him. Qin Chuan didn't realize it. "What about the Ministry of War? If you pick the mule, what about the others? Do your own thing first." Ren Baqian wanted to kick these two out. He was already busy, but they still came to make trouble. What's wrong with that Great Xia man? Why can he go and we can't? With his small body, I'm afraid he can't even take a punch. Qin Chuan said indignantly. Ren Baqian rolled his eyes and roughly knew what the problem was. "Invite Marquis Su here," Ren Baqian said after some thought. A moment later, the chubby former Marquis of Great Xia appeared in the palace. He looked at the tall and fierce-looking Tong Jingye and Qin Chuan with his small eyes and broke out in a cold sweat. Heaven took pity on him. Anyone here could hang him up and beat him up. "Marquis Su, I invited you here because I have something to ask you." Ren Baqian turned around and said pleasantly, "Your Highness, don't mention the word Marquis." Su Yu wiped his forehead and smiled flatteringly. "What does your Highness want to ask?" "Sir Qin, did anything happen on the way home?" Ren Baqian asked with a smile. Su Yu's face immediately froze. How should he answer this? Did something happen or not? If he answered that something happened, he would definitely be fine. However, looking at the other party's bulging muscles, he was afraid that he would be beaten up. If he answered that nothing happened, looking at Ren Baqian's expectant gaze, Su Yu immediately smiled and said, "Your Highness must be joking. How could anything happen to Sir Qin?" Ren Baqian nodded with satisfaction. "Sirs, please go back. Exinja, send the two ministers out of the palace." Ren Baqian immediately asked them to leave. Qin Chuan's face twitched. He stared at Ren Baqian for a long time, but didn't understand what he meant. Finally, he glared at Su Yu, swung his sleeves and said, "Your Highness, you have to give me an explanation." "I will give you an explanation soon," Ren Baqian said with a smile. Then he waved at Exinja and whispered in her ear, "Follow Sir Qin and see if anything happens on the way home." He also wanted to see how good Su Yu's poisonous healing skills were. Exinja looked at Ren Baqian in surprise. Although she didn't understand, Exinja's strength was that regardless of whether she understood or not, as long as she was instructed, she would definitely do it. "Sirs, please." Exinja cupped her hands and said with a cold face, "Umph." Qin Chuan snorted and left. Tong Jingye rolled his eyes, looked at Su Yu, and then looked at Ren Baqian. He smiled, cupped his hands, and walked out with his hands behind his back. The old fox was very shrewd and guessed that there would be a joke to watch later. When he left the palace and saw that Xianjia was still following him, he glared at her and asked, "General Xianjia, why are you still following me? This world belongs to Her Majesty, not you." Xianjia looked at him coldly. Qin Chuan snorted and didn't move. He couldn't respond to this. After getting into the car, they didn't go far before the car suddenly accelerated and drove forward. The driver was shocked, stepped on the accelerator, and pulled the steering wheel. The car didn't stop, and the steering wheel fell off. Looking at the steering wheel in his hand and the wall that was getting closer and closer, the driver quickly shouted, "Sir!" Without needing him to say anything, Qin Chuan kicked open the car door and jumped out. The car crashed directly into a telephone pole. The cement telephone pole directly fell down. The car was completely scrapped, but the driver was fine. Since they hadn't gone far from the palace and there weren't many pedestrians, there wasn't a big accident. The driver climbed out of the car and said with some lingering fear, "Sir, the car suddenly lost control." "What the hell? Forget it. Go back to the Ministry of War, and I'll take a walk," Qin Chuan said. He turned to look at the palace and wondered if that old man had done something to the Ministry of War. The cars that were sent to the Ministry of War were all defective. After walking for a short while, he heard a drawn-out shout from behind. Make way." The first shout came from more than 100 meters away, but the second shout came from behind him. Without turning back, Qin Chuan moved and appeared a few meters away. Honeysuckle rode his bicycle at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. If it were someone else, they would probably be able to see his back. However, Qin Chuan didn't have the time to pay attention to Honeysuckle's back. Another bicycle that was racing at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour directly hit Qin Chuan's buttocks. Or rather, Qin Chuan just happened to appear in front of the other car in a flash. Qin Chuan. Asterisk, the young girl, who flipped through the air, finally stabilized her body in the air. When she turned her head and saw that it was Qin Chuan, she was sweating profusely. She didn't dare to stop and ran away immediately. Chapter 1204. For the next 10 days, the laboratory conducted various tests on Suyu. The laboratory staff looked at Suyu as if they were looking at a precious specimen, causing him to tremble every time they stared at him. Pitiful, weak, and helpless. A Marquis of Great Xia could actually express such feelings, which could be considered a weirdo. Suyu's intelligence wasn't weak. In fact, it could even be said that he was quite strong. Although he wasn't a typical military strategist, he could be said to be powerful when paired with his poisonous healing ability. However, the most amazing thing was his ability to pretend to be a coward. This could also be said to be his biggest weakness. He was too cowardly. According to him, "I clearly know that you won't do anything to me, but I'm afraid. Everyone, you must hit harder, harder." From this, one could see what kind of person he was. His ability is very similar to that of the Bichi, but he doesn't need to be in direct contact or seen. It's a little like a verbal command, but it's the opposite. Ren Baqian carefully read the report on the table. The range of influence can reach up to 500 kilometers based on his situation in the Great Xia army, but as the range increases, the effect will decrease. The effect will be affected by time. The longer the time, the lower the effect. The magnitude of the effect will be affected by the strength. For a Cardinal Heaven expert, he will at most encounter some accidents and suffer some minor injuries. The duration is also very short. If the strength is too high, it will also cause a backlash. For example, when he exerts influence on Jinrenli, it will cause a backlash. This effect should be related to his own strength. The effect is better on targets with a small gap in strength, and the effect is minimally affected by the number of people. For example, one Kismet Heaven expert may receive an effect with an index of 5, 100 Kismet Heaven experts will receive an effect with an index of 4. 8 and 10,000 Kismet Heaven experts will receive an effect with an index of 4. However, we speculate that there should be a limit. If this limit is exceeded, he is likely to suffer a backlash. However, his ability has some other strange effects, such as affecting people's judgment. Renbachian's expression changed. This is a little interesting. After hearing about Su Yu's situation from Qing Lian, he had this conjecture, and the laboratory had now fully confirmed it. The laboratory did an experiment by changing the positions of 3 poker cards on the table, and then finding one of them. Ever since Su Yushir came here, no one had ever picked the right card. Even if they weren't fast enough, and even if they were staring at the card, they would somehow change their minds when choosing. There were all sorts of reasons for changing one's mind, such as forgetting, seeing wrongly, feeling that one was right, intuition, or many other reasons. This also proved why Great Xia would always inexplicably lose when the Revolutionary Army fought against the Great Xia soldiers. For example, when 2 armies left the city for a pincer attack, one of them went the wrong way, or the general suddenly made some low-level mistakes. In a battle between 2 armies, this was a great killing weapon. Get ready. We'll set off for the 60,000 mountains tomorrow. In addition to playing to your strengths, you also have to show your strategic ability. Renbachian pointed at Su Yu. I will obey your orders, Your Highness. Su Yu had always been obedient. Then he asked worriedly, will they listen to me? You just need to make your own suggestions. As for the rest, trust needs to be nurtured, Renbachian said meaningfully. Understood. Don't think too much, and just do what you have to do. The most important task for you is to improve your strength and reach the spirit will level. Renbachian waved his hand. Su Yu immediately looked bitter. It wasn't easy to reach the spirit will level. He knew what kind of talent he had, and that the man will level was already his peak. I will arrange this. Renbachian decided that even if he had to use the whip and pile up heavenly treasures, he would still reach the spirit will level. After Su Yu left, Renbachian fiddled with a pitch-black crystal ball in his hand. Looking carefully inside, one could see a figure inside. It was a woman sitting cross-legged, surrounded by darkness as if she was in an endless void. The woman's appearance was slightly blurred, but it gave off a sense of familiarity and intimacy. Anyone who saw the figure in this crystal ball would feel the same way. It took a lot of time on Earth to make this. The woman's appearance was finalized after countless calculations. It was filled with all kinds of characteristics of motherhood and fantasy. Anyone who saw it would have the same feeling. Peace of mind, warmth, admiration, and so on. In addition, the biggest feature of this crystal ball was that it could see the same scene from any angle, which was the front of the woman, whether it was up or down, left or right. This alone took countless people and countless efforts to finally achieve. The identity of the woman in the crystal ball was the Ajadi matriarch. After the breakthrough in technology, it wasn't difficult to make crystal balls. Renbachian made thousands of them, and prepared to send them to the 60,000 mountains, and find an opportunity to hand them over to Lindong. With this thing, he believed that it would be easier to preach. This kind of technology was considered high-end even on Earth, let alone in this world. It was enough to be regarded as a treasure, and it was easier for people to recognize the Ajadi matriarch. At most, other people would hang a portrait or make a sculpture. How could the effect be as good as this? There were no blind spots, and only one side could be seen from any angle. This was in line with the identity of the Ajadi matriarch. Father, what's that in your hand? A yo-yo? Honeysuckle bounced in and saw the ball in Renbachian's hand. Renbachian was so angry that he almost laughed. Nonsense, have you ever seen such a big yo-yo? Let me see. Honeysuckle was always very interested in the things that Renbachian fiddled with. Children were very interested in the things that their parents always fiddled with, such as cell phones and tablets. Honeysuckle was no exception. Renbachian threw it to her and said, I'm going to the south tomorrow. Come with me. Okay. Honeysuckle grinned and squinted her eyes when she heard that they were leaving the capital. After a while, she was surprised and asked, Who is this woman? Father's old lover? She's so beautiful. Nonsense. Renbachian wanted to slap her. Why was this child so mischievous? It can actually follow my point of view? Is this the technology of sight sensing? Honeysuckle turned her neck and looked left and right, but she couldn't see the back. The more she couldn't see, the more she wanted to see. She simply thought of a way to put the crystal ball on a cylindrical flower stand, and then circled around it. It was as if there was a tornado in the hall. After half a minute, Honeysuckle stopped and looked surprised. Is technology so advanced now? She rolled her eyes and smirked. Father, this thing can sense sight, right? If two people look at it together, will it spin? Like a spinning top? You can try. Rinpochean rested his chin on his hand and smiled. After a while, after Rinpochean's experiment was fruitless, Honeysuckle found a mirror and realized that no matter how she looked at it, she could only see the front. At this time, Honeysuckle was a little surprised. What is this? A Jadi matriarch. Honeysuckle immediately put the crystal ball in front of Rinpochean and put her palms together. Amitba. Rinpochean shook his head slightly. This child was too mischievous. In Chuan City, this had always been Dayo's largest base in the 60,000 mountains. The Protectorate of the South was located here. When Rinpochean alighted from the plane, he heard Lu Hua shouting beside his ear. Father, what are they riding? Are those spiders? Why are they so big? Can arthropods support such a big body? They're vertebrates. Rinpochean explained to Honeysuckle. Honeysuckle didn't believe him at all, and looked at him as if he was joking. They're indeed vertebrates, Rinpochean said again. That's right, these spiders had bones. It sounded very surprising. Perhaps it was a vertebrate with the appearance of a spider, which might be more acceptable. Its body could reach 3 meters, carry more than 100 kilograms of weight, and run as fast as flying on the mountainous terrain. This was a species found in the depths of the 60,000 mountains. Due to its living environment and food, its population wasn't large. However, after 10 years of artificial breeding after its discovery, it had gradually replaced the jumping goat and mountain-gazing bird as the main mounts in the 60,000 mountains. After a while, Rinpochean saw Shiwanya rushing over in Inchuan City. After introducing Suyu, Shiwanya said, Your Highness, we don't need a great Xia person. Shiwanya didn't belittle Suyu and simply ignored him. What could a man-will expert from Great Xia do here? Eat him. Believe me, you need him, Rinpochean said. We don't need him. Come, let's play a game. Without further ado, Rinpochean took out 3 cards and showed them to Shiwanya. He then put them on the table and asked, Which one do you think is the 3 of spades? Suyu? It's such a simple game. Do you think Protector General she can guess it correctly? Of course he can. There's absolutely no problem. Suyu kept wiping his sweat with his plump, tender, and fair hands. Your Highness, what are you doing? Shiwanya was baffled. If you can find the 3 of spades, I'm sure that you don't need a strategist. Shiwanya scratched his head and flipped over a card. It was such a simple question, yet, what the hell? Looking at the 3 of hearts on the table, Shiwanya couldn't believe it. Your Highness, one more time. Shiwanya's face darkened as he felt embarrassed. Okay. Your Highness, one more time. Your Highness, one more time. Your Highness, one more time. Your Highness. Rinpochean rested his chin on his hand and stared at Shiwanya, who was doubting his life. Anyone with a normal IQ wouldn't make the same mistake twice, right? How many times have you done it? You still say that you don't need a strategist? Chapter 1205. Your Highness, do you want to take a look at that stone gate? Shiwanya asked. No, don't overthink it. It's not your fault. Rinpochean shook his head. The stone gate was the one that Chiziting had passed through. No one knew where it led to. Whether it led to a corner of the earth, to the bottom of the ocean, or to the belly of a volcano. Although Rinpochean was very interested in the secret contained in that stone gate, and Chiziting's safety was also very important, neither he nor the laboratory could spare any more energy at the moment. Everyone was like a spring that had been wound. Their nerves were stretched taut as they walked forward step by step. In particular, a lot of energy and manpower had been invested in the recent plan to use crystals on weapons. Rinpochean drew a line on the map and then a circle. Get people to explore in this direction along the coastline. Our Navy has built a forward base there. The maps of this era weren't very detailed, especially when the area was completely covered in a fog that hadn't been opened yet. Our navy. Shiwanya chewed on this sentence. Dayo was mountainous and originally didn't have a navy. However, the fact that Dayo's navy had already crossed the Chun Nation and reached the 60,000 mountains shocked him. Taking the waterway was naturally much easier than traversing the rolling mountains. Although it wasn't comparable to airplanes, it was still difficult for airplanes to transport large amounts of people and supplies. Understood. Shiwanya nodded and prepared to go back to make arrangements. What do you think about transferring a military advisor to you? Renbachian asked. I still don't think it's necessary, Shiwanya said frankly. But your brain isn't working well. Renbachian looked at him with a faint smile. Shiwanya was speechless. Who am I? Where am I? What have I experienced? Don't underestimate him. He's very useful. You will know in the future. Renbachian laughed. Then he ordered, get someone to deliver the things I brought to Lindong as soon as possible. Nothing must go wrong. After Shiwanya left, Renbachian looked at the map. The Earth Spirit tribe was still 7,000 kilometers away from Chingu's encampment. At their current speed of 60 kilometers a day, it would take another 4 months. The Aboriginals had already set up quite a number of traps along the way. Most of them were landmines, but there were also explosives that could collapse mountains and rivers. This was to create a large number of casualties and increase the burden on the Aboriginals. In addition, they had also killed and driven away a large number of wild beasts in the area, forcing them to spend more time looking for food. As for the effects, they would only know when they came into contact with each other. They had to win this war, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. This was the only way to give the Earth Spirit the illusion that they could win as long as they put in a bit more effort. Only then would there be no interference from external forces. Judging from the speed at which the Earth Spirit had found them, they should be very far away. The report from Unsullied City proved that this was the case. This also meant that the Earth Spirits could buy a lot of time by going back and forth. At that time, His Majesty should be able to take that step. At the very least, the human race would have a top-notch combat power to deal with the upcoming situation. Otherwise, they would all be finished in one strike. A month later, an army made up of Earth Spirits and various ferocious beasts appeared in the mountains. From time to time, the roars and scoldings of various beasts could be heard from the team. There were flying mounts patrolling in the sky. Nothing within a 100-meter radius of the army could escape their eyes. However, it was useless for Dayo. All they had to do was watch the surveillance footage underground or in other hidden places and send it to the rear. After the Earth Spirits troops left, someone went to retrieve the micro-surveillance cameras at the rear. They moved covertly and only retrieved the cameras 2 days after the Earth Spirits troops left. They had been monitoring the Earth Spirit for 2 months, without being discovered. Those Earth Spirits were also vigilant. They felt as if they were being watched, but they couldn't figure out where this feeling came from. They didn't expect that the sparrows on the mountain peaks and the beetles in the crevices of the rocks were actually spies of the enemy. These fellows. Wherever they go, it's as if everything has been eaten. Nothing is left. In a cave that was completely sealed with only a hole for ventilation, 2 Aboriginal men sat cross-legged. In front of them were images of the Earth Spirits troops. They had participated in retrieving the surveillance cameras, and were a little angry after seeing the areas that the Earth Spirits troops had passed. The Aboriginals lived and died in the mountains. The 60,000 mountains was their final resting place. Everyone loved this land from the bottom of their hearts. The more we wait, the angrier we feel. Their movements are all under our control now, and we don't know when they will strike. Don't worry, there will be a good show soon. What do you mean? Didn't a group of people come here a few days ago? Other than killing or driving away the surrounding ferocious beasts, they also left behind a lot of good stuff. The other man winked. This matter had been buried in his heart for some time, and he could finally talk about it now. What good stuff? Tell me. How would I know? Those people won't talk about this. I just think that they are mysterious. Before he finished his sentence, a ball of fire suddenly lit up on the screen in front of them. 100 miles away, the army of the Earth Spirit clan was advancing. Most of the Earth spirits were very relaxed. After all, their opponents were just an exiled race, and they couldn't compare to them in terms of strength. They were like fully armed soldiers with steel knives facing a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. At least, that was what they thought. However, there was a sudden clap of thunder. Somewhere in the army, there was a sudden burst of fire. Steel balls shot out and formed a storm that immediately threw the surrounding Earth spirits into a complete mess. The weakest member of the Earth Spirit clan's army was at the Kismet Heaven level, but they still couldn't react to such a sudden attack. After the first explosion, a series of explosions occurred in the army. Boom, boom, boom. There are enemies. Are the flying troops eating sh*T? All the Earth spirits were vigilant of their surroundings and prepared to deal with the enemy's attack. However, to their surprise, no one appeared. The flying troops in the sky searched the area within a radius of a few hundred meters, but they couldn't find any traces of enemies. What exactly is going on? There are no enemies. What happened just now? All of them suddenly exploded underground. It looks like the humans were prepared for this. How many casualties are there? After a final count, there weren't many casualties. There were 10 explosions in a row, but there were less than 100 casualties, and most of them were injured. The sudden attack and the fact that the enemy had yet to show up made all the Earth spirits furious. They were just waiting to find the humans and kill them. However, before they could find the humans, the 100-meter-tall cliff suddenly exploded when they passed by it the next day. Large pieces of soil and gravel fell from the cliff along with the explosion. The casualties this time were higher than before. There were more than 200 casualties. Just like before, they didn't see any enemies. After two similar encounters, all of the Earth spirits became more cautious. However, the reality told them that it was useless. After only half a day, there was another explosion. They stepped on a mine again. Since it wasn't. Chapter 1206. In the 60,000 mountains, there were some changes in the formation of the Earth spirit as they advanced. A few giant elephants, which looked like mobile houses, walked in front. From time to time, some elephants would stop, and soon, some Earth spirits began to dig the ground. After a while, they dug out a palm-sized ball and carefully carried it to the army. Left General, I found something. It's this thing. Those humans buried it in the ground, and will explode when we pass by. Let me have a look. The Left General was an Earth spirit with only one eye. His other eye seemed to have been gouged out by something. This thing looks quite exquisite. What's inside? Study it and see how to dismantle it without damaging the inside. I want to see what exactly it is. Left General bared his fangs. What does it mean that there's a red light here? Beep, beep, boom. Sparks mixed with metal balls sprayed everywhere. Left General. I'm fine. Shrouded in black smoke, Left General waved his hand, revealing a face that was inlaid with countless steel beads. With a wave of his hand, the steel beads fell. To him, these things couldn't even break through his defense. Even if a Kismet Heaven expert was blown up, he would only suffer minor injuries as long as he didn't hold it right in front of his eyes like this. Search again. They must have left many behind. Those mines and bombs seem to be working well. There are very few deaths, but most of them are injured. Although they recover quickly, it takes up a lot of their energy. Their reconnaissance range has tripled, and they are advancing in a scattered formation. According to our observations, they are starting to get anxious. In addition, they deployed some giant elephants to scout ahead. These things have a better sense of smell than saber-toothed tigers and wolves. Some of the landmines were dug out by them. Although they were detonated, the existence of these things is no longer a secret to them. It doesn't matter. They won't have the chance to dismantle them, Rinpoche said indifferently. These mines were equipped with sound and infrared imaging devices, and they weren't just detonated by pressure. Even if they cut them open immediately, the core would still explode. It's also a little strange that tens of thousands of people have marched in the 60,000 mountains for so long and encountered mines and bombs from time to time, but their morale hasn't been affected at all. Rinpoche crossed his arms and casually said, "There's nothing strange about it. Life with faith is always more determined. It has been like this since ancient times. As he spoke, Renbachian thought of something and asked, on the contrary, they have expanded the scope of their investigation. Will the people in hiding be discovered? That's hard to say. After all, they have many vicious beasts that we've never seen before, and we don't know what kind of abilities they have. Furthermore, after hiding in a small underground cave for a long time, one would need to eat and drink. As long as a trace is left behind, there is a possibility of being discovered, Shiwanya said. Tell them to be careful. You can relax the surveillance as much as you want. Just make sure they're moving in the right direction. And if they've split up their forces, monitoring their every move isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is to not let them discover our surveillance equipment. Once it's discovered, the first thing to do is to destroy the equipment without any hesitation. I'll have someone inform them. Since they've expanded the scope of their investigation, there will definitely be gaps. If there's a chance, they'll catch some spies. Regardless of whether we succeed or not, as long as we make a move, we must retreat. Understood. Renbachian thought about it and felt that there was nothing else to say before letting Shiwanya make the arrangements. Renbachian stretched his back and walked around the courtyard. The air in the mountains was much better than in the capital, especially because of the mountainous terrain. It wasn't as hot as the capital. He walked through the courtyard and came to another place. There was a large vat in the courtyard with a fire under it, and Suyu was stewing inside. It's hot, 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 hot. Let me out. I'm almost cooked. Suyu was yelling inside, but he was held down by two burly men and couldn't move at all. Your Highness, I'm almost cooked. I can smell the fragrance. Suyu shouted as soon as he saw Renbachian. It's the smell of Chinese anise and Sichuan pepper, not yours, Renbachian sniffed and explained. Suyu was speechless. Why did you use anise and Sichuan pepper? Didn't you say you were going to cook me? Suyu was about to cry. It's more effective this way. Renbachian laughed. Suyu wasn't very talented, and he was quite lazy as well. The Rui visualization technique that the Empress found for Renbachian was extremely difficult to practice, and Suyu couldn't practice it at all. Renbachian could only find a way to force him into the spirit will level, by spending some time, energy, and a lot of resources. Even if he became an earth will expert, it would be much more useful. As for the Sichuan pepper anise, it did have a little effect on the steaming and absorption of several herbs. Even if the effect was small, it was worth it. After visiting Suyu, Renbachian returned to his residence and went straight back to Earth. A few minutes after he sat down, he received a complaint from the school. Renbachian got someone to bring Honeysuckle back and asked with a serious face, "Why did you hit me?" In fact, Honeysuckle mostly bullied people on Earth, saying that he was stronger than him, and that he was his little brother. It was child's play. This was the first time that he was actually reported by the school for hitting someone. They didn't believe me when I said that I had 10 days of classes a week. Honeysuckle felt wronged when he mentioned this. He puffed his cheeks like a big hamster. Other people have 5 days of classes a week, but I have 10 days a week. No one would believe me if I told them. How good is this? 1 day is equivalent to 2 days. I wish I had 48 hours a day, Renbachian said faintly. Doesn't your conscience hurt when you say this? Honeysuckle looked at Renbachian in shock. Conscience? Renbachian looked like he was recalling something. When was the last time someone mentioned this to him? Honeysuckle was even more shocked. Have you forgotten about your feelings? When did you lose your conscience? Renbachian regained his composure and asked. You hit him because of this? I didn't hit him. I just lightly hammered him. Honeysuckle was a little bashful. Then you flew out the window? Renbachian pointed at her and sighed. You aren't young anymore. Be more careful next time. Got it. Honeysuckle rolled her eyes, smiled, and said cheerfully, Father, let me tell you some good news. Something happened to the President of the United States. Oh, what happened? Renbachian was quite interested. He had already avenged half of the previous incident. The United States was heavily guarded, and he didn't even have the chance to cause trouble there. Search online and you will know. I'm leaving. I have an appointment with my classmates to go shopping. Don't drink too much. Renbachyan exhorted, but it probably wouldn't be of much use. He took out his phone and found that there were a lot of emails. He opened them and saw that they were from Wanyan, talking about the incident with the President of the United States. Once again, the door was zipped open. This time, it was even more sensational, especially since the woman mentioned a lot of details. For example, the time limit was only 2 minutes. The whole world was in an uproar. At the end, Wanyan also added a small piece of news. It seemed that the president was contacting the woman and was prepared to spend 5 million yuan to make her change her tune. 2 minutes was changed to 5 minutes. Renbachyan almost burst out laughing when he saw this. After thinking about it, he still felt that it was interesting. After contacting Wanyan, he asked, "Has the woman changed her tune?" "No, it seems that the man has some other conditions, and the intern is waiting for the right price. Give her 10 million yuan to change her tune." "Brother, what do you mean?" Renbachyan asked with interest. "Get her to reduce the time by 1 minute." Renbachyan was speechless. "Brother, you are really ruthless." Renbachyan, who had been in a high position for many years, couldn't help but complain. Chapter 1207. Citibank, White House. The special assistant of the president came to the door of a room and heard someone banging on the table. The man inside had been in a bad mood these days, especially after the woman rejected the man's suggestion and said 1 minute in front of the media. The man almost became a laughing stock. He stopped for a moment, knocked on the door, and walked in. "Have you found it?" the president asked angrily as he sat behind the desk. "Yes, it should be related to the Chinese." "I thought it was those Russians. Why would they play such tricks?" the president said gloomily. "It has nothing to do with their authorities. According to our investigation, it should be done by Wanyan Ren." The president smashed everything on the table. He knew what was going on at the mention of this name. It was that damn rude bastard again. "All right, you may leave." The special assistant hesitated for a moment and didn't tell him about the 52 strange gifts that the White House had received today, including aphrodisiacs, bull penises, geckos, and other things that were said to have aphrodisiac effects in China. Needless to say, the man in front of him was going to be irritable again. He left the room and felt a little funny for some reason. Renbachyan had already returned to Dayo. He was in a good mood after getting his revenge. Happiness should be built on the pain of the enemy. This was called political correctness. Another half a month passed. "The leader of the Earth Spirit has met up with the army," the Empress said as she sat on a tree branch. She swung her legs, looked depressed, and seemed a little bored. In fact, it was indeed very boring. There was no food, no wine, and not even a person to talk to. This month was the most boring thing in her life, even more so than when she was in the palace. "What about you, Your Majesty? Do you still want to follow them?" Renbachyan asked. "No. If it were me, I would definitely send experts to kill them in such a situation. No matter how weak they are, they would be able to hinder their actions. Letting the other party idle would only make him feel uncomfortable. I'm going to stay in Qing Valley for a while and kill them if they send people out," the Empress said. "Your Majesty, why don't you come back and rest? If they send people out, it will be too late for you to take action. After observing them for such a long time, we already know some of their important figures. If anyone leaves, we will immediately notice," Renbachyan said. "All right. Prepare the wine and meat, and wait for our return. I'm going to give them another big gift." After chatting for a while, the Empress hung up the radio. She landed on the ground, picked a few berries, and threw them into her mouth. She then rushed toward the Earth Spirit clan with a relaxed look on her face. At this time, the Sage King had already met up with the army of the Earth Spirit clan and heard about what had happened in the past few days. The Sage King's face was gloomy. "The humans are very weak, so they can only use this method to slow us down. No amount of tricks can change the difference in strength." Everyone agreed with this. It was precisely because they were not strong enough that they would use all sorts of methods to harass and obstruct the enemy. Otherwise, the human race would only need to prepare an army somewhere and wait. From the very beginning, they knew that the current human race was no longer the human race that had fought against the myriad races in the past. It was probably the difference between a husky and a husky. Advance and flatten them. The Sage King looked at his army and waved his hand in high spirits. The experience of being led by the nose by that woman, until he vomited blood, had been buried deep in his mind. Suddenly, a series of clear sounds came from the sky behind them. An earth spirit listened attentively for a moment and said, "Someone is coming from the southeast. There's only one person, a woman, and she is not covering her tracks." The Sage King's expression changed a few times, and the red figure appeared in front of him again. "Draw the surrounding situation," the Sage King ordered. After the others drew a map of the surrounding situation, he drew a few lines on it and said, "Left General, bring 5 experts and go around this side. Right General, bring 5 experts and go around this side from the back of the mountain. I will hold her back. I will give you half an hour. This time, you must not let her escape." After instructing the 2 of them to leave, the Sage King sat on the disaster beast and turned from the side to the back, preparing to hold the Empress back. After a while, the Sage King, who was looking down from above, saw the Empress in red standing at the top of the tree. He roared, "Woman, you alone cannot hold us back. We will kill all the way to the territory of the human race and kill all of you." At this time, the Empress was carrying a blue backpack on her back and a metal box in one hand. She stood on the top of the tree as if there was no gravity under her feet. "Hey, go ahead." The Empress sneered and looked at the Sage King as if she was looking at an idiot. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted to buy time, if it weren't for the fear of the strong foreign races, she would have thrown a nuclear bomb at the Earth Spirit race and buried them in the 60,000 mountains. Look, even the nuclear bomb's quantifier is a tractor. The Sage King was angered by the Empress's gaze and roared, "Although you are a little strong, that is all. The strong people of my race are 100 times stronger than you. And the Black God is an existence that you can't even imagine. You have no idea what kind of enemy you have provoked. You talk too much nonsense. Just fight." The Empress twirled her hair with one hand, completely disregarding the Sage King. In terms of strength, the Sage King wasn't weak, and he had an immortal body. However, in terms of fighting ability, the Earth Spirit race was basically equal to the Husky, who had the same strength as the Earth Spirit. Even though there were countless roaring beasts behind the Sage King, as well as the Earth Spirit race with angry faces and weapons. In the eyes of the Empress, these beasts were much more threatening than the Earth Spirit race itself. "Don't even think of escaping this time." Seeing that the Empress was almost ignoring him, the Sage King couldn't hold back his anger anymore, and instantly jumped out from the head of the giant disaster beast. He raised his hands as if he was holding something. Then he flipped down. There was a loud explosion in the sky. A hideous greenish-black arm stretched out from the void, wiping out a part of the forest below. However, before that happened, the Empress's figure flashed and appeared 1,000 meters away. "It's that thing again." The Empress glanced at the greenish-black arm, and threw the metal box in her hand over without hesitation. Originally, she was going to give the Earth Spirit Army a big gift, but she changed her mind. Then she retreated. As for the Sage King, when he saw the metal box thrown by the Empress and her retreating action, everything that had happened at the wall of the 2 worlds appeared in front of him again. After hesitating for a second whether to catch the box and throw it far away or retreat, he saw the cold smile on the Empress's face and immediately roared, "Retreat, all of you retreat." Even though he wouldn't die, he really didn't want to experience those days of festering all over his body again. In 10 seconds, the Empress's figure was like a red lightning bolt in the sky, retreating tens of thousands of meters. During this time, she still had the energy to take out a pair of sunglasses from her bag and put them on. Seeing that the greenish-black arm slowly retreating after flattening a part of the forest, the Empress pressed the button without hesitation. Boom! Another sun rose in the sky. This time, the yield was even greater than the one at the wall of the 2 worlds. The loud explosion and impact filled everyone's eardrums. When the Empress was thrown away by the airflow, she vaguely heard an angry growl coming from the explosion. "Stay here." A few figures leaped into the sky from the forest and attacked the Empress's back. Humph. The Empress was a little dissatisfied that her perception of the condition of her arm was affected. She snorted, and purplish-red lines instantly covered her whole body. A shadow appeared behind the Empress. "Get lost." The shadow smashed down at a faster speed than when it came. The Empress was also hit and bounced into the sky. A few other figures followed. The eyes of these earth spirit experts were red, and they bared their fangs. However, before they could catch up with her, the Empress took a step in the air, paused for a moment, and dashed in another direction. She glanced back from the sky and saw a huge mushroom cloud blocking her vision. She didn't know how much damage that arm would suffer. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.